Hey guys, this is Frank Decker, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
Hey, this is the Ultimate Fighter 17 winner, Kelvin Gastelum. UFC light heavyweight Ryan Bader.
Hi, this is Hector Lombard.
Tyron, the Chosen One Woodley.
Hey guys, this is Chad Money Mendez.
Jake Ellenberger.
I'm Hoist Gracie, Fedor Cheese, the People's Champ.
What's up, my fans?
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Submission Radio. Submission Radio.
Submission Radio. Let's do this shit!
Welcome to another episode of Submission Radio. Dennis Shkradov here with Kasper Ozlowski. It's the 27th of September, Cass, and the UFC takes another trip to Japan on this week when it comes to the world of MMA.
Yeah, they went to Japan. We're going to be breaking down the card a little bit later. Some highs, some lows. Some people got sleepy during the card. Some people got tired. Kenny Florian seemed very angry, very bothersome, like a bear. I think he napped through at least 3 of the fights. I'm pretty sure. We're going to do our best job to keep you guys awake for the next, 2 hours or so, something like that, in the form of some juicy guests. We got Stipe Miocic returning to the show. He's fighting Ben Rothwell, and he is the co-main event, or one half of the co-main event of UFC Fight Night Dublin. He's returned to the show. He's going to be the first guest on today. Phil Davis, just coming off his big win over not one but 2 juicy opponents, Emmanuel Newton and Francis Carmon at Bellator Dynamite. He's a champion of sorts. I mean, he's got a belt. Scott Coker gave him a belt. We want to have him on the show and chat about a bunch of things, so Phil Davis is on the show. And then his manliness, Don Frye himself, is returning to Submission Radio. I know a lot of people get excited every time Don Frye comes on the show. Hey, this week, it's no different. Definitely get excited. I can't wait to chat to Don Frye, and then we got UFC Japan, so it's a pretty stacked show.
Yeah, it's all happening, Cass. Really excited to have Don back on the show. Almost a Submission Radio alumni, or is he? We'll find out later on. We'll decide that fact later. But, guys, if you still haven't liked us on Facebook, we do get a bunch of stuff up on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Submission Radio AUS. A lot of the content goes on there. So if you have trouble keeping up with the stuff that comes out on our channel, which is youtube.com/Submission Radio AU, like our weekly technique of the week, we've got some great ones out, by the way, Cass. Jake Matthews shows you how to avoid getting caught in the guillotine when you take someone down. I mean, everyone catches me in guillotines, even when I'm not doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So it's important to watch.
You catch
I'm just
a bus,
walking down
boom,
the street
guillotine.
and I find myself in a guillotine.
Yeah.
So, I've been watching it over and over. I think it's got about 11,000 views, and I've at least done 10,000 of them. So
well, there you go. So we need another 100 more from you guys, please, if you don't mind. And and then we'll be all set.
Yeah, and then we've got the Twitter page, which is @SubmissionAUS. That's where we share our jokes. When the fights are happening, we're actually tweeting live most of the time. We love putting up GIFs and silly little things on the page there, so give us a follow. And it's also another way for people to contact us. A lot of people always wonder, how do we shoot you guys messages? Well, the best way is jump on Facebook, jump on Twitter, tweet us or Facebook us. We love having conversations with you guys.
Yeah, for sure. And another thing you guys can do, obviously this show comes out on pretty much anywhere where podcasts can be found. SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio. We've gotten a whole bunch of awesome ratings from you guys. Keep those coming in. That's really good for the show. It's good for the SEO, for the Google, for iTunes, all that kind of stuff. Jump on, give us a rating. Obviously, submissionradio.com. You can go there. There's a little button underneath the audio player. It's basically rate and review. If you click that, you can give us a ratings, and then it's basically all good for the show, isn't it, Dennis?
Yeah, that's right. And Cass, speaking of good things, we want to talk to all the listeners about something new, something fresh, something funky coming to the world of MMA here in Australia. Fight Live TV. Now, Cass, Fight Live TV is dedicated to all things combat sports. It's got free fight videos, live events. It's got some training clips, much like the Submission Radio technique of the week. It's got highlight reels, interviews, lots of fight profiles, news, galleries. It even has Submission Radio. You can listen to it through Fight Live TV. It's a whole bunch of fighting stuff located in one place for you guys to enjoy for free. And if you're a fight fan, this is probably what you've been waiting for, especially if you live around Australia. There's nothing really like this out there. You know, you can check out your favorite fights anytime, anywhere, and from any device, Cass. Now, there's a whole bunch of promotions that are involved in this cool little situation. Cass, what promotions are involved?
Well, the thing is, they're not restricted to just MMA. There's MMA, kickboxing, Muay Thai. I'll go through with a few of them. So in MMA, I mean, people ask us all the time, where can we watch Bellator without being sneaky pirates? Well, it's got Bellator, so you can watch Bellator on this thing. You can watch Rebel FC, you can watch RFA, you can watch Legacy FC. If you're a kickboxing fan, you can watch Glory, you can watch Power Play, you can watch GFC, Super Combat. And for all you Muay Thai fans out there, you can watch Lion Fights and Cage Muay Thai. And There's heaps and heaps more coming as well. This is a brand new service, so there's going to be way, way, way more promotions added as well. It's also got pay-per-view and on-demand content, and here's some of the events that are coming up. These are just in October, the pay-per-view events. Super Combat World Series Grand Final, that's K1. It's a free full event replay on the 3rd of October. Legacy FC 47, that's coming up. That's obviously MMA on the 17th of October. That's a Saturday. Rebel FC, that's MMA as well. That's free. Saturday 20th of October, and live free event featuring Aussie fighter Dan Ensign Hyatt. And then you got Lion Fight 25, that's Muay Thai, Saturday 24th of October, and that's the return of the legend John Wayne Parr, fantastic Aussie fighter. So, guys, there's plenty more to come out, and don't forget, go to FightLiveTV.com. You got tons of free access to events, videos, fight news, and even podcasts.
Well, there you go, guys. So that's enough from us for kicking the show off. I believe, Cass, we've got our first guest on the line, and he's ready to go.
All right, guys, our next guest will be taking on Ben Rothwell in October at UFC Fight Night Dublin. When he's not going for the knockout, he's wielding a big hose on the streets of Cleveland as a firefighter. So he's also been known to answer to the nicknames The Face Blaster and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Ladies and gentlemen, Stipe Miocic is back on Submission Radio. Stipe, welcome back, man. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Wonderful. Now, Stipe, you fought in states Canada, Australia, Brazil, England, and you have a Croatian background. And now you'll be fighting in Dublin, Ireland. Now, is it true that, Stipe, that you're officially an international man of mystery?
I guess so.
we guess so too, because it seems like you are. You know, the UFC like to pack international cards with local talent and fighters that have a connection to that particular country. We know your Croatian background, but is there any connection between you and Ireland, or at least that general area?
I don't know. I think there's a lot of Croatians that do live there. Mm-hmm. So, who knows? But I'm glad to fight there. The fans are awesome. So I'm pretty excited.
Well, Ireland is known for Guinness. Australia, where you fought last, is known for a lot of things, but also its love for beer. You were also in Germany not too long ago, which has Oktoberfest. Stipe, are you just accepting fights based on countries that have good beer, or has this been about beer all along?
It's always been about the beer.
We got you.
No, I know how random is that, but I actually wanted to go to Oktoberfest, but I can't because I have a fight. But hopefully eventually I can get out there one day. That'd be great. But it's just the way it happens. Places I go, they're good at drinking beer.
Yeah, I hate when I want to do stuff and then fights get in the way, like drinking and playing PlayStation. Now, Stipe, I want to get into some serious business here, right? Apparently, 2 kids scared the crap out of you on your run on their way to school. We almost feel like Oprah asking you this, Stipe, but what happened?
Nothing. It was just doing a morning jog, just nice recovery work. And I was crossing in front of a high school, and these 2 kids are, crossing past me and so them past me, and next I was this kid sprinting next to me, I had my headphones on, I just see his flash next to me. He's like, Stipe, and I'm like, what? Oh, and I got really nervous. I didn't know what the hell was going on. And he's like, are you Stipe? I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh my God, let me get a picture. I said, all right, man, no problem.
Well, do you think that these kids could have been planted in an evil plan to stop you from running by Ben Rothwell? Because we've all seen his cape and evil dark side as of late.
Yeah, who knows? No, they're nice kids, they're 7:30 in the morning, I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah, they seem nice, but it smells pretty sinister to us, Stipe. I really feel like Ben Rothwell had a hand in this, and they were really just planted minions.
Yeah, I should just push them in traffic and call it a day.
Wow, that's pretty brutal, Stipe.
I'm just joking.
Headline on Bloody Elbow, Stipe Miocic looking to kill kids. No, but seriously, let's talk about Ben Rothwell for a second and his new persona. What do you think about it? And are you looking forward to seeing his entrance for your fight night or for your fight in Dublin?
He's good at that stuff, man. I'm just a guy that wants to go fight. I'm not a great talker. I go in the octagon, put in work. So does he, but he's good at doing what he does. I'm not going to take it away from him. But I don't really care what he's going to do on fight night. All I know is I'm going to get that win.
Well, one of the big parts of his act is his big evil laugh. Well, do you think he'll try and intimidate you at the weigh-ins with his big evil laugh? And is there any chance that might work on you, Stipe?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Just.
I'm not really worried about it. It's good for him. He's got a good laugh. He's a nice guy,
Have people at the
I'll be
gym?
all right.
Have people at the gym like Jessica I and the other people over there been trying to do the evil laugh at you in training just to prepare you for the whole experience?
Oh yeah, all day, every day. No, I'm just kidding. No.
You should consider it. There needs to be like an evil laugh masterclass. But look, in all seriousness, Stipe, the last few interviews that we've done with you, you've made one thing clear, and that's that it's all about the title for you. Last time we spoke, it seemed like it was down to you or Andrei Arlovski next for the belt. What was your reaction when you found out that you'd be facing Ben Rothwell instead?
It is what it is. You know, I guess they have different plans for me. I mean, I knew about it. Just got to go out there October 24th and do more work.
Yeah, it's one of those situations. And not only did you and Arlovski not get the next title shot, but Cain is now going to be facing Werdum in a rematch. We know that you don't like to play UFC matchmaker, but do you think it makes sense for Cain to be getting a rematch considering how he lost?
You know, he was a former champ, I guess. I mean, I'm just not popular enough. That's what it is.
Ah, come on. What do you mean?
There's kids chasing you when you're going for a run. That's pretty popular.
Yeah, that's because I live in the city that they go to school at.
What do you think though?
After that fight, I would have got it.
What do you think though? Given that Cain got, you know, the way he lost, it was fairly dominant. Do you think it warrants getting an immediate rematch? I know you don't play a UFC matchmaker or anything like that, but just, you know, what do you think? Should it maybe have gone to like you or Andre or given someone else a go?
You know, I can't say. I mean, listen, that's not my job. You know, it's Joe Silva's job at Dana White and everyone else in the UFC. You know, I mean, they go a lot off popularity and what the fans want. Apparently, the fans didn't want to see me fight.
Yeah, I don't know about that. And also, I don't know if the fans were very happy when they saw Cain was actually getting the rematch. I think there was a big uproar about that. So just wondering, though, Stipe, did you have a conversation with Dana or Joe at all after you didn't get the title shot? Because we had Ryan Bader on the show recently, and after he didn't get his title shot with DC, he had a bit of a chat with Dana over the phone just to see what he needed to do to get that title shot. Have you had any similar conversations to what Ryan had with Dana or Joe about what you need to do to get the title shot?
Yeah. Yep. I need to get more popular.
Is that what they told you? Is that what they said, or are you just sort of guessing that's what it is?
No, I mean, it wasn't popular enough, and so it's pretty much, you know, I got to get popular.
Well, how do you get more popular though? I mean, you're putting in great fights. I mean, you've had amazing performances. You're funny on Twitter. How do you do it? Is that a bit frustrating for you? Because how does one get more popular?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it must be like a high school thing, you know?
Yeah, it's like Mean Girls. It's like Mean Girls.
Yeah, right? I mean, it is what it is, man. I mean, that's what it was. So, I mean, gotta go out there and keep beating ass.
Yeah, you got to start smoking. I hear people that smoke are pretty cool. Junior Dos Santos.
I'll get a pack of Camels when I get home.
Yeah, exactly. Junior Dos Santos is going to be fighting Overeem at the end of the year, and it seems that the winner of the fight will be, you know, put into a title shot next. Is it frustrating for you? Are you at the point now where you're just a little bit over it? Because that title shot that seemed really close just seems a little bit further now.
I mean, like I said, you know, those guys are popular. I'm not.
Well, you're popular to us, Stipe, and that's all that matters now. Ben is no pushover.
I really appreciate that. Thanks a lot.
Well, no worries. I mean, we had a great time in Adelaide and Melbourne as well, so it's our pleasure. Now, Ben is no pushover. He's a tough veteran with a lot of power and a few sneaky tricks up his sleeve. What do you feel your advantages are over him in this matchup? And does his unorthodox style and out-of-the-box submissions worry you at all?
You know, he's a tough guy. Like you said, you know, he's a veteran. He's fought the best in the world. But he hasn't seen anything like me, you know. But you know, anywhere it goes, I'm going to be all right. You know, I'll be the more dominant fighter, so I'm not worried about it. I'm just going to do what I do. I'm going to win that fight October 24th.
Does he have to bring a pillow like Mark Hunt did, or leave his pillow at home?
No, I mean, I told him I bring the pillow, you know, for my client. So
okay. So. Will you be bringing the same pillow or a different pillow?
Whatever Ben wants me to, because everyone thinks they can knock me lights out every time, knock me out cold, so I'm used to it.
You've had back-to-back 5-round fights against Junior Dos Santos and Mark Hunt. Is part of you relieved that this fight against Ben will be, you know, a nice, much quicker 3-rounder?
And before that, Fabian was also a 5-round fight.
Well, right, but yeah, okay, fine. But that lasted, you put him out pretty quickly. With Junior, you had a war with Mark Hunt. It was a dominant but a really long fight. Are you happy that at least on paper now it's not going to go longer than 3 rounds?
Yeah, I guess. I got no choice. It's gonna. It's what they gave me, which is fine. It's kind of nice to be 3 rounds, but he's still, like you said, he's a tough guy. I can't look past him. All I care about is Ben Rothwell. So I'm gonna give him hell for 3 rounds.
Yeah, that's right. He's got those evil powers as well, something that you haven't had to deal with before. Speaking of Mark Hunt, in your last fight, obviously you fought Mark Hunt. Obviously you haven't fought Ben yet, but in terms of preparation, who do you see as the tougher test between the two, Mark Hunt or Ben Rothwell?
I don't know. They're both tough guys. They fought the best in the world. They both got good chains. They hit hard. They're big heavyweights. Every fight's a tough fight, no matter what it is in the heavyweight division, because we're wearing those small little gloves, and anything can happen.
Well, your game plan for past fights has always been pretty much the same thing, which is win by any means necessary. With Junior Dos Santos and Alistair Overeem also closing in on that title shot, it really seems like whoever gets the more impressive win in the next couple of months will get the next title shot. Is there pressure on you to have an exciting fight and really put an exclamation point on your fight with Ben? You mentioned, getting popular. Is there pressure to go in there and, be extremely dominant?
I'm going to go out there. I'm going to do what I do. If I don't get the nod, I just got to keep beating people and just keep taking names.
Well, Stipe, speaking of having ass, beating ass and taking names, we've got the Submission Radio tap out round. I don't know what I'm talking about. But we're going to do some fun questions with you, and you answer with the first thing that comes to mind, a bit like word association. Okay, are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Now, Fedor goes to Japan, and fans are pretty disappointed about it. What was your reaction, and were you looking forward to him coming to the UFC?
It is what it is. He's an all-time great. It would have been great in the UFC, but whatever. I'm not worried about it. I'm worried about me, not about him.
Yeah. Was there part of you that thought, because anyone who faces Fedor, it's going to be a very high-profile matchup. Was any part of you, I know you focused on Ben Roth, any part of you sort of thinking, oh man, if I get a juicy Fedor fight, could be a good way to possibly get more popular?
No, I'm not worried about his Ben. That's all I care about.
Well, let's talk about it from a fan's perspective. Obviously, you're good friends with Cro Cop. If him and Fedor were to have that rematch in the UFC, who do you think wins that rematch?
Cro Cop.
How do you think he does it?
I think he just beats him to the punch. He does what he wants. This time it's a little bit different, and he's got better training, so I think he'll be good.
Stipe, we always got to check on this every time we interview. Any crazy stories lately with your fire department adventures or paramedic adventures? We'll take either.
No, we have a big, pretty tall bridge that we have in one city I work for, and we had a double rollover on it, so it was pretty serious, but nothing crazy. No one fell off the bridge, so that was a good thing.
Wow.
Well, Stipe, the only way out of a fire station is down the pole. So is it true that the key to sliding down the pole is to do it in the sexiest manner possible?
Well, we don't have a pole at our station, but if we did, I would totally do it. I would wear no pants. I was going my underwear.
Wait, so no pole in the fire station. Is that technically even a fire station?
Well, no, they don't do it anymore because they're getting hurt too much.
Too sexy going down the pole. That's probably what happened. Stipe, what's with all the cute animal pictures on Twitter lately? They're adorable, but what's the deal?
They're just cute, man. It's what be. Come on. Yeah, Southside.
Yeah, no, it is important to be cute. Me and Casper do know this. Now, in preparation for Ben Rothwell's chest hair, have you been getting training partners to wear sweaters while training with you?
We broke Stipe.
Oh my God, that was awesome. That was awesome. That was great. No, I have not actually.
Okay, good. Just checking. Now, Stipe, when you come back to Australia, we will invite you to play some golf with us. The question is, will you wear that delightful golfing outfit you shared on Twitter? I think it was pink and purple.
100%, yes, I will, but I'll have a better one. I'll have a different one.
Oh, wow.
Ooh, okay. Well, shots fired. We'll have to prepare for that. Now, Stipe, speaking of outfits and costumes, give us your top 3 Halloween costume options that you've narrowed down for this year's festivities.
Well, I got one. I'm going to be like a creepy referee. I was going to wear like super tight shorts, like And then it's like super tight, like I'm sorry, referee, but Jim T-shirt.
Nice.
Shagaball with a creepy mustache. But my number one is I'm gonna be Gold Dust from the WWE, wear a leotard.
Holy crap!
that's
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, do that, or I'll figure it. I know what my third one is, but that's two right now. I'm thinking about.
Are you a big WWE fan, Stipe?
I mean, not really. I mean, I watch it, but nothing crazy. My friends are like die hard into it.
I feel like you'd be a good Sting, you know?
Yeah, get the face paint going.
Like,
Do you
yeah,
have
for sure. I mean, as long as I don't talk, we'll be good.
Well, you know, that's the deal with Sting. When he talks, it's not that great either. Now, let me ask you this. Do you ever get pet peeves at people that wear fireman costumes for Halloween? Because apparently, I don't know what the deal is, but some people have such spot-on outfits that people actually confuse them for real firemen. Is that a deal? Does that annoy you?
No, not at all. I mean, my boys love it when the girls wear them because they're like skanky-ish, you know?
Yeah, I was gonna say the only fireman costume should be like a slutty fireman or fire girl. We're not prejudiced.
Yeah.
Finally, Stipe.
No, I mean, I got a girlfriend. I love her. You know, she wears great costumes.
Oh well.
I love it because with your girlfriend, remember the first time you were on one of the first times you were on our show, you said the main thing to bring down to Adelaide was the Xbox.
Yeah.
When we saw her in Melbourne, we gave you guys a bit of a reminder about that. Did you get in trouble at all by the girlfriend because of the reminder by Submission Radio?
She actually brought it up a few times, like busting my balls about it. But you know, I recanted and did it right the second time, so she was happy.
Yeah, just when you think the argument's over, old Submission Radio brings it back up. She's like, "I told you, Stipe." Finally, let's get.
It's like 3 years ago, you know.
Yeah, exactly. What's the to get serious for a second? What's the prediction, Stipe? How do you see yourself beating Ben Rothwell in Dublin?
Oh, you'll find out when I have my hand raised at the end of the fight.
Well, we heard that prediction before, Stipe, but we'll take it here on Submission Radio. Guys, you can check out Stipe fighting Rothwell at UFC Fight Night, Duffy versus Poirier, October 24th, and follow Stipe and his Twitter awesomeness at Stipe Miocic UFC. As always, one of the biggest gentlemen in the UFC, Stipe. Thank you for coming back onto Submission Radio.
Hey, thanks, guys. You have a great time, all right?
Hi, this is Stephen Bonner, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys, our next guest had a very good weekend at Bellator Dynamite, beating both Emmanuel Noonan and Francis Come On to become the next man to face Liam McGeary. Mr. Wonderful Phil Davis, welcome back to Submission Radio. How are you?
I'm good. You can say I had a dynamite weekend.
Dynamite weekend.
See what I did there? See what I did there?
The man's got jokes. The puns are coming out early. The interview's just getting started. Well, it's been a few days now since the whole Bellator experience, the Dynamite experience, if you will. Tell us, now that everything's settled down, have you had a chance to sort of reflect on your dominant performance, and also where have you been wearing that Bellator tournament belt? We imagine the grocery store, to the gym, or in the club.
You know what? I didn't get a chance to do anything yet. I just did a little wine tasting, and then I came home. So I really haven't had the chance to wear it around much. But you can bet that really soon there's going to be a bunch of photos coming your way, just me wearing the belt in random places.
Awesome, the adventures of the belt. Now, just quickly about the belt, you looked a bit surprised when Scott Coker put it around your waist. Did you know there was going to be a belt? And what went through your mind when you saw you were going to have a belt?
I had no idea that there was going to be a belt involved. I was like, oh, whoa, well, wait, what am I the champion of? Let's talk about this for a second. Yeah, it was all very confusing to me.
But in a good way, right? Did it make it even more special having the belt?
Right. Well, see, I don't really like surprises in general. No. So even like a good surprise is like, I'm still too surprised. What's going on, you know?
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? It's weird because I just get done fighting, then somebody sneaks up behind me. My instincts are still on red alert, you know what I mean? I'm still high. I don't know. I might have, karate chopped somebody, you know?
Oh, for sure. Scott Coker's lucky to still have his life after creeping up behind you like that. I'll tell you what.
I spent too much time in the pen for people to be sneaking up behind me like that.
Christmas would have been a hard time for you, Phil Davis. You go down in the morning, next thing you know, family members are hurt. I told you, I don't like surprises.
Now, Phil, take us through this. When you were growing up, were you a big fan of Pride? Because watching Dynamite, for many fans, it was like jumping into a time machine and being able to enjoy some of the old school production values from Pride that we haven't seen in a long time. So were you a big fan of Pride growing up?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. As many of them as I could watch, I did. It was really nostalgic being up on the stage. I was like, oh, man, this is how they used to do it. They did. They used to come out and salute the fans first. You have to know who's on the main card.
Yeah.
And they go to the back. It was like, it's crazy. It was cool. I was like watching it and in it at the same time. It was definitely a treat.
Lenny Hart, I mean, she's got a very iconic voice. When people hear her voice, it's very nostalgic from the get-go. What was it like? Was it? I know, like, obviously you did really, really great things that night, but was it sort of like a minor highlight hearing your name being announced by Lenny Hart? Because you never know how she's going to pronounce it.
Exactly. Yeah. Some people, I was just going through the timeline. Some people are like, that lady's crazy. Like, that lady's awesome. You know? It's but again, it's having that, you know, it's having watched Pride and wanted to be that person in the cage or in the ring, you know, getting announced that makes it so cool and special for me. And imagining all these years what that would have sounded like, you know.
Did it sound the way that you imagined it?
Yeah, about like that.
It sounds like it didn't live up to expectations. No, just kidding. Let's get off Lenny because she might listen to this and get upset. Let's get into the actual night. Now, your first fight that night, you defeated longtime former champion Emmanuel Newton via first round Kimura. Considering that the current champion Liam McGarry wasn't able to get it done within 5 rounds, what kind of message do you think it sent to the rest of the division?
Well, you know, my whole point in being in Dynamite was to come straight in, fight the best, two of the best guys in the division. Karma was a treat because I wasn't even planning on fighting him, and also definitely a good striker and a good grappler. So you know that's kind of icing on the cake that I got to face him. But yeah, I just want to come in and let everybody know where I am in the division, and I was able to do that.
Well, you proved your point, you know, not once but twice. I just want to go back a second. When speaking with MMA Fighting's Luke Thomas, Emmanuel Newton mentioned that in his previous fights, he had never trained for more than 2 weeks and that he spent a fair amount of time partying and smoking weed. Just curious, did you know about that going into the fight, and what are your thoughts on that? Because I think a lot of people found that pretty crazy, especially considering his past success.
Man, Newton's like he's a special case, man. He's a very awkward fighter, and he's very skilled. So having not really trained properly for his fights, you know, that changes what I think of him. You know, he still has so much more he can grow and he can gain and become a better fighter. And he's already tough, you know.
Now, you mentioned how it was a treat fighting Francis Camon. You were obviously originally meant to fight King Mo in the finals of the tournament. What was your initial reaction when you found out you had the last-minute opponent change? And were you already mentally preparing and game planning for King Mo when you got the news?
Oh, yeah, of course. You know, we didn't waste any time game planning. You know, we watched his fight, and then after his, you know, I mean, there was no talk of him until after I won my fight. After I won my fight, it's like, okay, you know, stay loose, don't get too cold, and, you know, just run through some plays kind of thing. Just a walkthrough. We did a lot of walkthrough. You know, just not even super slow motion. Just here's what you're looking for in this position. Here's what we're looking for. You know.
Exactly how much time did you have to prepare for Carmont, though? Like, so from the moment you got the news, Mo's out, Carmont's in, to the time you made entrance, how much time was there in between?
Maybe 10 minutes.
Oh, wow. How did you feel having only 10 minutes to prepare for an opponent? Because most fights these days in MMA, you get, you know, a few months, if not, you know, at least a few weeks. Now you've got 10 minutes. How did that make you feel?
You know, people will find any excuse to lose. You know, I leave myself no excuse, and no matter who steps in that cage, I put the work in on the front side. I put it in on doing my camp, getting ready, being the best Phil Davis I can be. And as long as I'm the quality product stepping in the cage, you can, whoever else is going to get in there is, you know, they're going to have to adapt to what I do. That's the way I look at it. And I mean, in most times, that's the way it ends up playing out. Very seldom do I have to majorly tweak my game to accommodate someone.
Yeah, well, I mean, your game was spectacular on the night. You scored a stunning first-round knockout over Francis in the second fight of the night. Now, you're not a guy that's known for your knockout power, and your last stoppage win due to strikes was in 2009. We're just wondering, what do you attribute to getting the KO? Is this something that you've been working on specifically in your camp leading into the tournament, your striking and the power behind it?
You know, honestly, it's just when you fight, it's just 3 rounds. If you could see, if I had like a clock counting all the rounds I've done in training, you know, 3 fives is just a slither of the time I put in, and you know, in training and in sparring, I'm in there with some great guys, day in and day out, and honestly, it was just a matter of time until it happened. It's not like, you know, it's just maturing. Just maturing. I mean, was the game plan to knock it out? Not necessarily. The game plan's always to use hands and kicks, set up takedowns, grapple, ground and pound, submission. I mean, it's always part of the package, but you know, it's just one of those things. I love having the 8 or 9 months that I got off preparing for this fight, because it just gave me a chance to just be in the room training with no real date, and I was able to see a good amount of change in my body and in just my game, my all around game. So it's yeah, I'm happy with that.
We're happy that you're happy, Phil. You know, you and King Mo, you're both big names, and you guys would have made for a good fight. But you know, the way it turned out, you guys will probably fight in the near future. You're both big names at the top of the division, and now you have another big marquee matchup to look forward to in the division. Do you think that it was almost a blessing in disguise that you and Mo didn't fight on that night?
Sure. I mean, there is, without a doubt, we're definitely going to fight in sometime in the future. It's just bound to happen. So I really, it all just depends on whether I fight McGarry next, or what order of things go down next. So.
Well, it definitely leaves a very exciting matchup in Bellator. Now that it's all over and done with, Phil, I mean, this is your first experience fighting twice in one night. What did you think about it? And take us through, what was the hardest thing about fighting twice in one night? And what was the thing that you enjoyed the most?
Whoa. All right, let's start at the top of that question. What was the first part of that?
So now that obviously this is your first experience fighting a couple of times in one night, what was the most difficult thing for you? Was it going into the back, having to stay warm, the million things that you had to deal with? What was the hardest thing for you? And then what was the thing that you enjoyed the most about fighting twice in one night?
Yeah, you know, I anticipated this being the toughest part of fighting twice in one night. And it really was. It was, you know, just refocusing after your first win to not to get too happy or too you know, caught up in my last win. That last win means nothing. Now it's time to concentrate on the fight in front of me. And it was like, man, you know, Emmanuel Newton's a super tough guy. Be able to finish him in the first period is like, ooh, that's worth celebrating over. It's like, all right, not tonight, you don't. Tonight you don't worry about that. That's water under the bridge. Now we gotta go through King Mo next, you know. So that was really the toughest thing. It sounds silly, like, oh, you should be able to do that, but it's, you know, normally, you know, you get a first round finish. That's the end of the night. That is the end of the night. It's shower, change, get ready for the press conference. You know, and in turn, it was like, you know, it's like change your gloves, you know, and then give me some more gloves, and it was like, you know, just get taped up again. And get back into that, you know, pre-fight, very, very intense focus. kind of stage and feeling.
The whole thing, I mean, it sounds like a tough experience. I want to sort of cut over to the main event, segue a bit more to your opponent, Liam McGeary, your future opponent. But just before we do, Tito Ortiz, he did pretty well against Liam until he got caught by the submission. What did you think of Liam's performance that night against Tito?
I thought he did good. He has some tough grappling. I thought he did good grappling, but I also thought he gave up a takedown a little bit too easily. So I think in a fight with me, that'll be something that maybe holds him back or will allow me to gain some advantage.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting that you say that because last week we had Frank Trigg on the show. He was breaking down the Dynamite card with us, and he'd mentioned the same thing, that Tito is a good wrestler, but he was able to take Liam down pretty handily. Now, you're one of the top wrestlers in the light heavyweight division. I mean, you just mentioned the wrestling will be a factor for Liam, but how much of a factor do you think it will really be if you guys do end up matching up? How much of an advantage do you think you'll have because you're such a great wrestler in MMA?
I think that's a great matchup for me. He's a good striker. He's a good grappler. And he still has a lot of work to do in the wrestling. So, I mean, it's one of those guys that you cannot say, oh, it should be a piece of cake. Absolutely not. You see that triangle he slapped on the old boy's head? That was slick. It was slick, and it was mean, too. I was like, oh, that's highlight reel right there. So, it's a great matchup. I honestly do think so.
Were you surprised when you saw that inverted triangle? Did it catch you off guard? Were you there watching like, oh, wow, I didn't see that coming? Or were you like, this is what I expect from Liam?
Nah, it was not at all the move that I would have gone to or what I was expecting. Definitely, it was slick. He had me. Well, how did you get that? How did you do that?
Yeah, well, I mean,
it was definitely slick.
He's known for those slick submissions. He's also got a lot of reach, and he's got a bunch of knockouts. What do you think is the most dangerous aspect of his game, of his arsenal?
I need to see more of his stand-up, but probably his ground game.
Well, your last fight before Bellator Dynamite was back in January, Phil. You mentioned that before. If Bellator came back to you and said that they'd like you and Liam to fight in 2016, what would your take be on that? Would you be fine with doing it in the new year, or do you want to get back in there and again in 2015?
Well, honestly, when you're not the champion and you're facing the champion, I'm not going to pretend like this comes down to me. So, it comes down to the champion. Luckily, he's not too beat up from his fight, so I can only hope that it's sooner than later. So, but yeah, I mean, I would love to fight before the end of the year. That'd be rad.
Well, speaking of things that are happening right at the end of the year, I mean, the big announcement during the event was Fedor signing with a new Japanese promotion, which is backed by Saka Kibara, who is the man behind Pride. I just want to get your thoughts, Phil. What do you think about Fedor signing with them? And did any part of you, like a lot of fans wanted to see Fedor go to the UFC, did any part of you want to see how Fedor would do in the UFC?
You see, that's a business thing, like Fedor is he's able to make some good business decisions throughout his career, and the reason why he didn't go, or the reason why he is where he is entirely business. Here's a guy who doesn't feel the need to quote unquote prove himself against whomever someone else says you need to prove yourself against this guy. Now he's comfortable in himself to say, I'll fight whoever gets in this cage, and he will go throughout his career that way, which is there's something to be said about having that chip on your shoulder and wanting to fight the best guys. But at the same time, business wise, he's never, well, I don't know about never, but not recently. He hasn't recently taken that pay cut to quote unquote fight the best guys.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, from a business standpoint, it makes sense. We obviously wanted to see him in the UFC to see how he does against those heavyweights. But this card that he'll be fighting on, it's going to be in New Year's Eve in Tokyo. There's a lot of talk about who could potentially fight Fedor. I mean, obviously, you're going to be facing McGeary next. If Scott was to offer you that fight against Fedor at some point, would you take it?
Man, I'd have to. I'd have to. You know what I'm? It's like, how could I not? I don't know. Like, he's a legend, in the sport. It's one thing. It's one thing if you lose to Joe Schmo, but if you lose to Michael Jordan, people are like, you know what, you did good against Mike. There's competing, and that's like a fight that anybody gets up for. You get super excited for. Is he the best Fedor we've ever seen? Who knows? I would lean against no, but at the same time, I won't count that man out of nothing. I'm going to come at that man like he has a weapon in his pocket. Okay, like he's that good.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, the guy is just such a gentleman. You never know what cards he has hidden underneath his sleeve. Now, while talking about that fight in Japan, Phil, just wondering if because Bellator is working with this new Japanese promotion, if they offered you a fight with Liam on that New Year's Eve card in Tokyo, would you be open to that option as well?
Dude, I'm open to everything. You say, Phil, can I? And the answer is yes before you finish it. I'm down. I'm down. You don't got to convince me to do nothing. You want to do Dynamite 2? You want to do Dynamite 2 New Year's Eve? Is that what you want to do? Okay, because I'm down with that too.
Good.
Whatever you want, I'm down with that too.
All right, good. Well, we're glad we've pretty much got your permission that you're down for the next thing. It's how we finish all our interviews, the Submission Radio tap-out round. We fire off a bunch of fun questions. Actually, we've just got a few here today, and you answer with the first thing that comes to mind. So I won't ask you if you're ready, because obviously you are. Now, Phil, the first question, we saw you had a romantic stopover in Napa Valley. You touched on that earlier. Did you wear your title while enjoying the fine cheese platters and wine?
Yeah. I did have a good time enjoying the fine cheese and wine. It's not every day I get to do that.
But did you wear the belt?
Oh, I didn't. I should have. I should have. I left it in the hotel.
You should have worn the belt, and then you should have cheekily pointed to the belt, like really unprovokingly, like more wine, and then you're like, sure, and then you point to your belt.
I was worried. I didn't want to like my buddy who won the Stanley Cup. It's cool. Like, they all drink beers out of the cup, and I'm like, I don't know. What am I supposed to do with the belt? Can I drink out of the belt? I don't know.
You can do shots out of the belt. The indentations.
Are there rules?
You can eat cheese off the belt in Napa Valley.
Yes.
You can use that as like a platter. Now, Phil, we're looking at your Twitter profile, and it says that you're a book reader. We want to know, what's Phil Davis been reading lately?
Don't
let us down.
Slowed down for a little while. Yeah. I don't have a new one that I'm reading right now. Yeah. But I need to actually. I found a nice little hat for a book called what is that called? The E-Myth.
The E-Myth.
The E-Myth. It's about being an entrepreneur.
Okay.
And some of the myths about entrepreneurs. So I found a hat for that online so I can listen to it for free. So
nice. That's what it's all
First
about.
step of making money, find a free way to listen to the
book. We need to read your stuff. We just basically read letters to Penthouse, and that's about it. So we'll get on the E-Myth. You've got to tell us about this photo that you put up of you, Chris Lieben, and Rampage Jackson on a private jet. What was going on in that picture?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you. But I know roughly the whole time. Chris Lieben is just, he's just one of those dudes. He's just out of his mind saying silly stuff. And Rampage, the two of them together, they're just like magnetic. Rampage's crazy too. So they just there's just a crazy conversation they have, and I was just sitting back and laughing the whole time.
Yeah, Rampage looked like he was tickled pink. He looked a little bit angry at old Chris in that picture. So hopefully Chris didn't pee on any pillows or anything like that. Now, I got to ask you this question, Phil. It's something the fans have been talking about lately. Do you think Randy Couture versus Fedor may happen, or there might be a chance it might happen in this New Year's Eve card? And if these two guys do go up against each other, who would you pick to win that matchup?
Oh, man.
It's a tough one. It's a tap-out round.
I would give it to Fedor.
Ooh.
I'd give it to Fedor. Well, it's in a ring, correct? It would be in a ring or a cage?
I don't think they've made that clear, but considering it is going to be Pride 2.0, I would think ring.
is like paramount. That decides everything for me.
That's very smart.
I think that decides everything.
That's a good point. I like the way you're looking at it. Finally, last question, Phil, and then we're going to let you go. Looks like you've got a bit of a break on your hands. You may fight in 2015 or maybe early 2016. What's the plan for the rest of the 2015 for Phil Davis? How are you going to stay busy?
Oh, I'm going to stay busy in the gym, working hard. You know, we got a good gym, and there's always somebody fighting. So just help my teammates out. I'll be doing some traveling, doing some cornering, and you know. Something about being on the other side of the cage, it really sharpens your skills if you allow it to, you know?
Well, there you guys go. Phil Davis is going to be traveling the world, helping people out, and also listening to audiobooks about how to improve that wealth online. Phil, it's a pleasure having you on Submission Radio. We can't wait to see what happens next. Guys, you can follow Phil on Twitter at Phil Mr. Wonderful. Phil Davis, thanks again.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, that's right. El Guapo here. That means the pretty face. All you guys out there, you're listening to Submission Radio. Godspeed and party on.
All right, guys, our next guest is one of the baddest men when it comes to MMA. He's got an iconic mustache. You know him from Pride and the UFC and now from movies. It's our pleasure to welcome a Submission Radio alumni at this point, Don Frye. Welcome back to the program.
What do you mean, one of the most famous mustaches on the planet, buddy? This is the greatest mustache on the planet.
Well, we're off to a fantastic start. Don, it's great to have you back on the show. Last time we spoke to you...
I made Joseph Stalin and Pancho Villa and everybody else look like little girls, buddy.
We've got no arguments there. Last time we had you on the show, you were close to mixing it up with the fans at the UFC's Fight Week Expo, giving the fans a taste of the epic mustache. What was the experience like, and how did you enjoy being around your fans?
You know what? It was a top-rated event. It's very good. I was very impressed. Everybody there was polite, and, you know, the organization of it was top level. It was very professional. I was impressed completely by the event.
Well, we had Uriah Faber on our program, and he said that you guys hung out as well. Most of the team alpha male. Uriah's summary of the hangout session was that you basically needed your own reality TV show as soon as possible. Do you have any crazy stories for us? What did you guys get up to?
Boy, if I had a crazy story, I wouldn't be able to remember it now, would I?
Anything you can share with us?
We all lived through it, and we didn't have to post bail, so, you know, that was...
Well, it was interesting because Uriah actually shared with us a fact that you mentioned to him that you'd be open to getting some kind of boob operation or something for a specific amount of money.
Oh, my God. You know, I'm so disappointed in that boy. You know, you're talking about getting bushwhacked. They're sitting there having a couple of drinks together. They're supposed to be good old boys. Next thing you know, he's got me on YouTube or whatever the hell it is. Yes, you know, I'll pull a Bruce Jenner for $10 million. I'll wear a pair of tits for a year. Yes, I will.
But what happens after the year is up? What, they come out and it's back to the regular Don Frye?
Heck yeah, let's see, offer me another $10 million or $20 million. You know, it goes up. It goes $10 million towards each titty. Yeah, so that'd be 20.
Oh, you're a genius of a businessman, Don. Now, we hear you've been busy shooting a movie. What exactly have you been working on?
I was over in Ohio doing Animal Among Us. John Woodward directed it, and Jonathan Murphy. Jonathan Murphy. Mm-hmm. One of your guys wrote it and helped star in it. And John Woodward is the director. I've known John, well, I call him Woody. I've known him for a decade. We got together on a movie a decade ago, and we were taken by the director, writer. That guy fleeced us, and Woody wouldn't let me leave him in the creek, so I had to ignore the guy's existence for the next decade, which I'm very spiteful about. But if he does end up in a creek sometime, I have nothing to do with it. But Woody called me up for Animal Among Us, and we filmed that, and it's a hell of a script. really, Jonathan Murphy wrote a hell of a script and produced it, and Woody did a great job directing it. I was completely impressed with it every day. And then while I was there, I got a phone call from Sean Stone, Oliver Stone's son.
Oh, wow.
And he told me that, God bless the late Rowdy Piper. Rowdy passed away.
Yeah,
so,
that was tragic.
Stone asked me if I would mind stepping in for taking the spot in the movie, and I felt that was a great compliment to be asked to take Rowdy Piper spot. And so I jumped on that right away for this called Enter the Fist of the Golden Fleece. It's a parody on the 1970s Kung Fu movies, and it was a blast. I tell you, I've never had so much fun making a movie, man. I tell you, it was a blast. It was a goofy. It's like being a circus performer the whole time.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've heard some great things about the movie, so we can't wait to check it out. You mentioned Roddy Piper before. I just want to ask you, Don, did you have much interaction with Roddy? Have you guys, had many experiences together? Can you share any moments that you guys shared?
I was privileged enough to work with Rowdy Piper twice. We did a movie, and then we did a TV show, that Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah,
and
sure.
We did 3 wrestling matches for them that night, and probably about 15 seconds on screen. But, it was about 2 hours we worked for them. I did that, and then I did a movie called Honor, in which Piper beats me to death in that. And then we did an autograph session today one time, and we had a great time. We were backstage just talking, and just started out talking. And, it was 2 hours later. And I feel like, holy shit, I guess we had to get out there and sign autographs.
When
Piper always made you feel more than what you were, like a better person than what you were, Piper done everything in the world anybody could wish to do, and he always made you feel like you were exceptional.
It's funny you say that, because that's exactly what made him great in pro wrestling, was his ability to put guys over and make them look good. I'm just curious, you guys didn't really have much interaction or cross paths in the pro wrestling realm, did you?
No, sir. I never had the privilege of working with him, no.
Just moving on to your other movie, Don, we've seen you also doing a World War II movie by the name of Gleicheltung. It's a movie that examines the social and emotional issues present had Germany won the war. Tell us a bit about that project.
Yeah, that's great. I worked with Patrick Kilpatrick, and he called me, and I said, you still have that 68 GTO convertible you drive around? And he laughed. He said, no, I lost that in the divorce 4 years ago.
Yikes.
And he said, how'd you know that? I said, I saw you in the garage one night driving by, and I thought, wow, what a great car. And then I recognized the face, and I looked it up on IMDb, and it was you. But man, the car was impressive.
I mean, the movie's pretty interesting. It speaks about what would have happened if Germany had won the war. Speaking of wars, Don, the situation in Syria is really getting out of hand. We're just wondering, if Don Frye was president, how would you handle the whole situation?
Well, I wouldn't let them from the bitches in my country, that's for sure. Unless they were women and children and Christian. They could be women and children and Muslim, that's fine. But, these fighting age males, no, they can stay there, they can fight. Put a gun in their hand, send them back. You know what? We fought our revolution 225 years ago. Let them fight their own. We don't need to be nursemaiden, men who are old enough to own a gun and use a gun. Fight for your own goddamn freedom. Don't come over here and expect us to change our rules and our lifestyle to suit you when you're not even man enough to fight for freedom.
Interesting take. Well, while on the subjects of presidents, Don, there's a number of key people who are standing out of the presidential race in America, none more than Donald Trump. Chael Sonnen was on our show a couple of weeks ago, and he said that he's a fan of Trump. What do you think about his campaign?
He said he's what?
Chael Sonnen was on our show. He said that he's a fan of Donald Trump. What do you think of his campaign, Donald Trump's?
Well, it elevates Chael in my eyes a feather. You know, because, yeah, I'm a fan of Donald Trump's. I'm voting for Donald Trump. I like Donald Trump. I like Carly Fiorina. And I like Ben Carson. I like Ted Cruz, too. Any of those four got my vote.
Yeah, it's certainly one of the more popular guys running for the campaign. Now, another personality who looks to run for president in the U.S. in 2020 election is the rapper Kanye West. He announced his plans for the MTV Music Awards. I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts on the news of Kanye West running for president in the future?
Well, last I heard, he was going to lead the country, right? So now all of a sudden he wants to be president? What, he stuck in that big fat ass of his girlfriend and cut off the oxygen or what?
If he ran in 2020, would he be getting a Don Frye vote, Kanye West?
Fuck no. No, he already turned his back on the U.S., said he wanted to leave. So, no, now you don't get to come back. You don't get to change your mind and want to be the leader of the country. Sorry, make up your mind. You're too unstable.
Sorry, Kanye, no vote for you. Now, we just want to chat about MMA a little bit, Don. You've had a huge career in Japan. The UFC is trying to revive the interest that fans had in the sport. You know, I'm just wondering, when you fought in there, how big was MMA in Japan back in the Pride days for some of the fans that may not remember? And why do you think it's died down?
You know, back when you do Pride was an event, you know, in all the meaning of the word event. And, you know, people were dressed up like in evening gowns and suits and ties and tuxedos. You know, the Japanese, they give you an idea of socialism. They have nothing to do with their money. They work hard all week long. They don't have enough money to buy a house. They never save enough money to buy a house. So you have 2, 3, 4, 5 generations living in an apartment. You know, you only buy so many TVs and stereos. You only buy so many clothes. You only buy so much furniture, you know, to fill up this apartment. So you have to spend your money somewhere. So they go out and they get drunk and they spend their money on entertainment. We were the main entertainment in the country and in that part of the planet. You know, when I fought Yoshihiro Takayama in Pride 21, I think, we beat the World Cup soccer.
Wow.
For our time slot on TV. And it was Japan versus South Korea. That's how important it was. But Yoshihiro Takayama-san and I beat them for the time slot. That's how important entertainment is.
Well, as you would have heard, the man behind Pride, Sakakibara, is starting a new promotion in Japan with the first show for New Year's Eve featuring Fedor Emelianenko. I'm just wondering, what were your dealings like with him when you fought in Pride, and do you think he can bring the sport back to popularity over in Japan?
Yeah, you know, Sakakibara-san and I had a good relationship. We had ups and downs, and it didn't really end on a good note. But that's between him and I, and I wish him all the luck in the world. I hope he can make a comeback, and I hope he can give the country what they need and what they deserve. Japan's a great country. I love it.
It is a great country. I mean, one of the downfalls of Pride was obviously the controversies of the Yakuza's involvement. Do you think the sport can ever bounce back to the popularity that it once had, you know, to be like what it was in the Pride era?
You know, that's so funny. The Yakuza involved. The Yakuza is involved in everything over there, you know, but they just don't want to admit it. The Yakuza owns the taxis over there. You know, at midnight the subways shut down and you're forced to take a taxi until 6 or 7 in the morning. And why? Because the Yakuza owns the taxi system. You know, the mob has their hand in everything over there, just like they do in Russia, and just like they do here in the U.S. Okay, so let's get our hand out of our asses and just admit life is life. I'm sure it's the same over there in Australia.
Yeah, well, we've got some bikies down here, Don. So we definitely have some stuff going on down here. I'm just wondering, with your time over in Pride in Japan, did you ever have any dealings with the Yakuza? We know that they like to take certain fighters out to dinner and stuff like that. Did you have any, positive moments with any of the Yakuza guys involved in Pride?
No, because I did 4 years in New Japan Pro Wrestling as a bad guy, and it's like girls. They asked me about the girls. No, everybody was afraid of me and nobody did me. So no, I didn't have any involvement with anybody, unfortunately.
Just want to get your thoughts on Fedor. Obviously, many people wanted him to sign to the UFC. Do you think he could have done well in the UFC if he chose to go there instead of Japan?
Oh, hell yeah. There's the light heavyweight division is the weakest it's ever been. It's always been a weak division in the UFC, the light heavyweight division, and it's weakest now than it's ever been. And the heavyweight division only has one man. That's Werdum. Everybody else is 17 stories below the man. He could have walked in and had his choice at the belt, championship belt in 2 weight classes.
Yeah, it's definitely, a lot of fans were a bit disappointed to see that it didn't go that way for him. Now, obviously, you were a big star in Japan and still are a huge star over there. Now that there's this new push for Japanese MMA and this new promotion starting up, is there any chance that you'd be open to working with this new promotion in Japan, Don, in any kind of capacity?
Well, if they make me a legitimate money offer, yes. But if they come in some stupid-ass money offer, no, that shows how unprofessional and how idiotic they are. So, no, they have to give me a quality money offer.
Well, just looking back, Don, out of all the huge fights and pro wrestling matches you had in Japan, just take us through. What were some of the highlights that stand out to you? And did you prefer the production of the shows in Japan to the UFC ones?
Well, the UFC I was in was completely different than the UFC now. Harwitz owned it, and David Isaacs helped run it, and Campbell McLaren. I think they did a great job. It's fantastic they ran on a shoestring budget, and what they pulled off was amazing, because you got to start somewhere. And what they did was the groundwork for what you have now. And but New Japan Pro Wrestling was the #1 pro wrestling organization on the planet when I was there, and I was just privileged to be part of it, and shit, it was fantastic. I was in all the whole time I was there.
Yeah, no, you had such a fantastic career, Don. Now, we've got a couple of fan questions to ask you before we finish up the interview. The first one comes from username Ricky Left Hook. He just goes, Don, I wanted to get your thoughts on comments made by one of your past opponents, Tank Abbott, about Ronda Rousey and women's MMA. He said, this is what Tank Abbott said, she's a girl and it's all about this emotional stuff. I will fight any woman on this earth for free. I will. You can't be a tranny. You got to be a female, born a female. I won't even train. If I win, which is going to happen, you're going to get bashed up good. You have to make me a sandwich. If you win, I'll give you $100,000. What do you reckon about Tank's comments?
I love it. I think Tank stole that from me about make me a sandwich. I think I said that. I think that's great. I'm sorry, Rhonda, but I saw an interview with you where you were saying that he's a bantamweight champion of the world, and the UFC doesn't distinguish between men and women. But I'm sorry to hurt your little female delusional brain, but you are the bantamweight female fighter. You have no chance of beating a male fighter. So you do belong in the kitchen making a sandwich, if that's your thought. Otherwise, you are the greatest female fighter on the planet. But that's the bottom line, is female.
There you go. I think you may have just topped Tank Abbott. Now, actually, last fan question is from the Count. Last time you were on Submission Radio, or this is what the Count say, last time you were on Submission Radio, you said your back is feeling better, even suggesting that you'd fight Kimbo Slice. Is there any chance we could see Don Frye fight one last time?
I guess not. I made that offer, and apparently Scott Coker of Bellator didn't take the bite. He hasn't called me. So he needs to take promoting 101, so to understand how to get an organization off the ground.
Oh, for sure. And hopefully he hears this interview and it motivates him to give you a call and get you some kind of matchup, because that would be fantastic. Now, we just got a couple of last things to ask you, Don, before we let you go. One of the things was your thoughts on Nick Diaz's suspension. I don't know if you heard about this, but Nick Diaz got suspended for 5 years. It was his third offense. Everybody's in arms about it. It was a pretty ridiculous suspension by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. Well, what did you think about that whole thing? Do you think the commission needs somebody to monitor them, because some of their decisions lately have been pretty crazy?
I think the decision is horseshit. I think these guys don't know how to wipe their own ass. That's how retarded they are with their decisions. There's no reason for him to be suspended for 5 years smoking dope. Everybody knows marijuana is a harmless drug. It's not a performance-enhancing drug. And they're going to turn around and they're going to give John Jones his license back. John Jones, who is a multimillionaire and has 3 or 4 baby mamas, which means, you and everybody else who pays taxes are buying these little bastards, and he's wrecking cars, and he's caught with coke in his system twice, and DUIs, and they're going to get this guy fighting it. This guy should be done for life. And I like John Jones. I'm a fan of his as a fighter, but as a person, apparently he's a piece of shit. Now, they're going to let this guy fight, but not Nick Diaz, who is just smoking marijuana. There's something wrong with these assholes.
Yeah, well, I mean, his lawyers actually presented a case where 2 of the 3 tests showed that he was clean. However, when Nick Diaz was asked by the commission, he pleaded the 5th, which is his constitutional right, where he didn't want to speak. And it seems like he got punished in particular because he chose not to speak. But that's his constitutional right, isn't it, Don? Why should he be punished for that?
Correct. Yeah, correct. They went over and above their legal abilities. They should be canned right there. They should be sued. They should be disqualified in their position. They are the epitome of the word unprofessional. Just for that, I mean, they were told that he has the right to plead the 5th, and their response was they don't care. They're in charge. They're going to run it the way they want to. That is the most un-American, unprofessional response I've ever heard in my life. They need to be deported.
Yeah, we'd be in favor of that. Now, before we let you go, Don, we see you've been doing some Predators prediction shows recently. There doesn't seem to be one coming for UFC 192, but when can we expect the next installment? And do you think you'll do one for UFC 193 here in Australia?
You know what? Up until that last question, my last response, we were working on doing a couple. We're working on doing the next 2 Predators predictions. But I think after speaking my mind as an American, as a free citizen, and the First Amendment, I think the Nevada Athletic Commission is going to put pressure on the UFC, and I'll probably never be heard from again.
No way. There's no way anyone could stop you from talking, Don. Everybody loves listening to you. Thank you so much for jumping onto Submission Radio. We love having you on the program, guys. Make sure to follow Don on Twitter at Don Frye Fighter. He's got all his links up there. He's got some amazing gear that you need to jump on and buy. There's some fantastic T-shirts and a lot of fun stuff that Don's involved in. Obviously, the movies coming out. Make sure you jump on and watch those. Don is a fantastic actor. Don, thank you so much for your time.
All right, partner. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Thanks for getting me fired.
Thanks, Don. We hope your day gets better. We'll speak to you soon.
And there you guys go. Don Frye saying that he might get fired. I don't know about you, Cass, but when it comes to Don Frye, I believe he's the one that does the firing, even if it's not his company.
Yeah, exactly.
Like he'll just walk into a place and fire everyone, and they'll be like, but you don't even work here. and he'd be like, "I'm Don Frye." You know, so I don't think Don Frye's going to be fired anytime too soon. But a bad man. I dare to say it. Cass, a Submission Radio alumni.
Oh, really? Didn't see that coming. I feel like Don Frye. I feel like it'd be that episode of Seinfeld where Don Frye would fire someone, and they, like you said, they'd be like, "Oh, you didn't even work here," and he'd be like, "That's what makes it so hard, partner."
Yeah, bit of a Kramer moment.
Yeah,
for sure, man. But look, as everybody knows, the big UFC event returned to Japan. Obviously, we spoke about it on the episode, how Japan's having issues getting MMA to where it once was. UFC had the big event, Barnett versus Nelson. And before that, they had a whole reality show cast leading into it. Now, we didn't really get a chance to watch too much of it because it was really focused on the Japanese public, getting them interested. But for people who don't know, there was a reality show leading into it, much like The Ultimate Fighter. But I think Josh Barnett and Roy Nelson, they weren't really coaching against each other. They were helping older fighters on the show.
It was called The Road to UFC, Japan. Let's get into the fights because we're going to talk about what actually happened in the finale of The Road to Japan. But before we do, which was obviously the curtain jerker on the main card, UFC. I want to talk about the main event of the prelims before I get into it. UFC Japan. It was a weird card. There was lulls in action. There was times where I feel like, judging by the reaction on the Twitterverse, a lot of people were dozing off. You could not really do much to keep Kenny Florian awake. Did you notice there were parts where he was like extremely frustrated? I feel like Kenny Florian was hating life at a few points. He sounded like he needed an energy drink or something. He was dozing off. Did you get that as well?
Oh, no, absolutely. Him and John Anik as well. I mean, it's one of those situations where the commentators really play a key part in keeping everybody awake. And I'm not saying that they dropped the ball in this situation, but I feel like if Joe Rogan and Mike Goldberg were there, they would keep the momentum a little bit higher. And it might be because Mike Goldberg, he's got all his cliches, and Joe Rogan will just go off on tangents. Anik and Florian sort of seemed a bit lost a lot of the show. And yeah, definitely. I mean, some of the times when Anik went to break, it sounded like we were coming back like to a funeral or something. It was like, it's not much emotion, not much joy in the voice. You could really pick it up in this one.
Again, I'm not having a go at Kenny Florian or anything, but you could hear in his voice, he sounded like he was falling asleep. He sounded at times like he was woken up halfway through the bouts. There was I was also thinking like it almost made me miss Mike Goldberg. I know he cops a lot of flack, but he'll often ask Joe Rogan things. He'll be like, Joe, what do you think about this? He'll try and open conversation and lead to things. And, I do think commentary is a lot harder than what people perceive it to be. I think it's a tough gig. And that's what I was sitting there thinking. But I just don't think I've ever heard such a lull in sound or anyone talking. Like, there was moments where you're watching the fights, the crowd is silent, the commentators are silent. It was just weird. It was eerie. It's just not something that I'm used to. But
it was very strange, and a lot of people do give Mike a lot of crap, but he has the ability to bring out the best in Joe Rogan when they commentate, and he also has the ability to keep stuff moving along. And even though he does sort of use the same phrases, at the same time, it's comical and fun and keeps people entertained. So yeah, it was definitely needed in this one. And you mentioned, Cass, the quietness. I mean, certain points you could just hear the camera guys on the side of the octagon. That was the loudest thing you can hear. Like no one in the crowd. You can hear people breathing loudly because there was nothing else happening. I mean, you could hear people breathing. You could hear you could hear a pin drop in the crowd. There was like polite clapping here and there. It was, I don't know. And the way the arena looked as well. Like I know it's a pretty iconic arena, but the way the UFC set it up, obviously they don't have a stage. Like, they don't have much production values, and the actual entrances, because I guess no one was cheering, but also the way the octagon was set up, it just looked a bit funny. It looked a bit small time. I know it's a pretty big arena. I had a look. Apparently it can hold like 37,000 people, but just didn't seem like it. When you looked at it, it looked like a smaller sort of venue, very quiet. Yeah, weird.
It was weird and it threw me off, especially when people were making their entrances and no one made any sound. Like you could hear the music clearly. Normally when people make entrances, you can barely hear the music, or it's kind of like faint, like over the crowd, and the crowd wasn't roaring. The crowd was pretty much silent. It was weird. There was a lot less energy in this event, and there was times where I think you guys let us know what you think. Drop the comments in the comment section below. But there were times where I felt like I was falling asleep a little bit, and I didn't realize just how much energy I actually got from watching these events just by going by the crowd. I don't know. That was just me. Let's start talking about the fights. First fight, I want to talk about the main event of the prelims: Nakamura versus Jing Liang. This is a pretty crazy fight. Basically, Nakamura was getting his ass handed to him for the first 2 rounds. Actually, sorry, for the first 3 rounds. He was not really having much success with his grappling. He was shooting takedowns without really setting it up. And it looked like he was in for a rough night in the office. The ending was one of the craziest finishes I've ever seen. It looked like he was going to lose that decision. He shot in for a takedown, got sprawled, pretty much the same as he had been for the rest of the fight, the previous 3 rounds. Nakamura basically took Jing Liang's back, ended up getting both hooks in, got a standing rear naked choke. Jing Liang didn't actually tap. It looked like he was trying to tap and passed out while he was motioning and ended up face planting. We tweeted out, can you give this guy a submission of the night and a knockout of the night? It was absolutely brutal. It was one of those moments where you feel bad for the guy, you feel bad for Lee, but at the same time, visually, it's so pleasing. It looks so good. What did you think, Dennis?
Yeah, no, Nakamura just teleported onto that back. It might have been like one of the craziest back takes I've seen in a really long time. And I think it's just the effect of seeing someone pass out from that rear naked choke and just drop like that. It's like something you'd see in a movie. Jing Liang, I mean, he'd be pretty upset because like you mentioned, he was really doing well and he got caught right at the end. It was a really, really cool moment. I mean, what does a man have to do for a submission of the night bonus, Cass? Doesn't seem like it could get more spectacular than that.
I'd say that's up there for submission of the year. Not only that, I remember when John Jones obviously choked out Lyoto Machida and he just dropped like a sack of potatoes, and people were talking about how brutal that was. This by far topped that. I hope Lee's okay. You know what I mean? That's probably some of the worst punishment he took of the night, falling face first like that. But it was absolutely crazy. That's something that I won't forget in a long time.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And unless he got some kind of concussion falling sort of down on his head, hopefully he is fine. Because that's the good thing about all these chokes. Even though guys get choked unconscious, because they let go straight away, most of the time it doesn't damage the brain like a knockout. So at least it's the better of the two evils. But nevertheless, I mean, he'd be super frustrated winning the fight like that and then losing in that manner. I mean, he'd be back in the gym, I reckon, trying to come back stronger and better for his next fight. But yeah, huge win. I think that sort of woke up the crowd a little bit. Like, it was the main event of the prelims, and the crowd sort of was on and off for the prelims. But I think that moment really got people going and into the event a little bit. I feel like that was a moment that really helped the event going into the main card.
Well, Nick Hein and Kasuya, that one wasn't really the most exciting fight. So I think around that time, people were falling asleep.
What about the nut shot from Nick Hein? I mean, this thing was brutal, Cass. I think every guy watching that broadcast felt some kind of pain in their own testicles. The guy was rolling around on the ground. I mean, it was brutal. It was tough to watch. And Nick Hein, I mean, a great guy. You'd feel terrible for a nut shot like that. At one point, I almost felt like the fight just wasn't going to go on, but I just had to bring it up because, Kat, do you think, was that one of the sort of crazy reactions you've seen, the guy getting hit in the nuts with a knee in the UFC, Cass?
Yeah, look, that was pretty bad. I mean, I always think back to Cro Cop versus Overeem. That was a really bad one. And actually, Cro Cop versus Czech Congo. Man, Cro Cop has the worst shot. The worst luck when it comes to nut shots. The weird one about... Look, Nick Hines a nice guy. The weird thing about that is it was very direct. Like, there's a lot of nut shots where I look at and I'm like, I don't know, didn't really see much. Like, I guess it hit. It's very hard to see. Like, even sometimes when Joe Rogan and Mike Goldberg are like, right on the cup or right on the balls, I'm like, really? I don't know. It looked kind of glancing to me, but okay, whatever. This one was like right on the balls. But the weird thing is when they showed the replay, you see where his knee went. His knee wasn't going at his stomach. It's like it went straight into the balls. So I don't really know what Nick Hein was trying to do there.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. I mean, I don't want to harp on this too long because we've got a whole card to break down, but it's one of those things of a lot of research has been done, and you know it does dramatically change the outcome of a fight. Eye pokes and knees to the crotch, and then you start thinking about, you know, how do you go about managing it, like from a referee's perspective? Like, does a point have to be taken if it's such a significant shot, or does it need to be a disqualification or something? Because a lot of the guys getting smacked in the balls, it takes ages for them to recover over the time limit they get allocated. And I guess it's one of those gray areas in the sport at the moment, Cass.
Well, I do think Kasuya was actually doing really well in the first round. And if you could arguably give him that first round. If you gave him the first round, it would give him an extra round. But if you did take a point away, you would have a draw on your hands. So I don't know, man. It's a tough one. I feel like almost no referees are prepared for it, and it's always a sort of a case-by-case basis. And it is really hard to judge. Like, the thing is, if he didn't, I don't know. If I was a fighter and I trained for the fight, and you put in months and months of work, and then you get hit in the balls, you're gonna want to continue, right? You're not going to give up after 5 minutes. I mean, I'm lucky where I haven't had to take any, bad nut shots where I can really relate. But if you look at most fighters and the fighting spirit, they're going to want to continue. Even if they are really badly hurt, they're probably going to continue. But the thing is, it may cost them the fight. And that's the unfortunate thing.
Yeah, and I mean, we spoke about the knee. It was an accident, but you mentioned how, it wasn't going anywhere near the stomach. Should those be penalized more? Because I know when I've been rolling, I mean, we're not like fighters or anything, but you and me do a bit of jiu-jitsu, Cass, we do some kickboxing. And I know when I've done some rolling and also I've done some kickboxing, I've been kicked in that area before, and it takes me probably all night long to recover from it. It's just absolutely brutal. It definitely takes something away from the fighter. I mean, I'm interested to see what happens in the future, but agree with you, it's tough. What can you do? You go overboard, people are going to start saying that's a ridiculous decision. You can't give the guy the fight over it. You don't do much about it. People are going to say, well, it affected the fight. So it's one of those difficult situations.
Yeah, there's that diamond cup. It's meant to be like amazing. You can run over it, but there's a lot of guys that just use regular plastic cups. And the scary thing is, plastic cups. If that cup breaks, it can slice your boys off.
Ooh, that's no good.
It can give you an accidental circumcision, and that's not as fun as it sounds.
The moil.
The moil, yeah, exactly. Let's move on to the main card. The featherweights, Mizuto Hirota and Teruto Ishihara. Fun fight, really, really back and forth. It was the young lion versus the old lion. Ishihara really looking to punk Hirota. These guys did not like each other. Ishihara saying that this guy basically should be retired. And I feel almost like it was the story of the tortoise and the hare, where Ishihara had a really dominant first round. Really dirty the way the fight started, actually. Ishihara motioning for a glove touch, ended up throwing a kick as soon as they touched gloves. I don't even know if they actually touched gloves, but Ishihara went for a kick straight away. I almost felt bad for Hirota. He was taking a lot of punishment there in the first round. In the second round, he really turned it around. He ended up getting a lot of shots. Both guys got rocked. Ishihara started to really slow down, especially in the second round, and I thought, man, he's going to get finished. If this fight goes any longer, if it goes into the third round, he's going to get finished. I'm actually impressed with the heart of Ishihara, because it seemed like anytime Hirota, he would start off rounds really slowly, and then he would take some punishment, and then he would sort of take over towards the end of the fight, but Ishihara never gave up. He kept on going. This is a really fun fight. What did you think, Dennis?
Yeah, I thought it was a good way to cap out the season of the road to Japan, or whatever the reality show was called. I agree with you. It was a really fun fight. I mean, at the end, there was a bit of confusion, Cass. The fight was called a draw. And then when that situation, what do you do? Who do you award the magnificent six-figure contract to? Everyone was confused. Japanese people were even quieter than they were before. Yeah. People didn't realize it was possible. People didn't know what was going to happen. Alas, the UFC gives both guys a contract. Well, what do you think of this decision?
Well, I feel like I reckon Newman was in the back there, and they were like, what do we do with the contract? And it was like the bike. It's like, we cut the contract in half, and everybody takes their half, except they both got a six-figure contract. I'm surprised that the UFC didn't have some kind of plan for this. Like, what if it goes to a draw? Like, you and me witnessed it firsthand. UFC, what was that? I think Cameron and Alves here in Sydney, Australia, in like 2011 or 12, I think.
Yeah, something like
12.
That, yeah.
And Demetrius Johnson and Ian McCall fought to a draw, even though it wasn't. Actually, sorry. Demetrius Johnson got the nod. It was supposed to be a draw, and we got robbed of a fourth round. This is a fight where I really would have loved to see a fourth round, because I feel like a finish was coming. And if not, we would have gotten most likely a really fun fourth round. So I don't know. I'm all for both guys getting a six-figure contract. I'm a happy-go-lucky guy. I want everybody to win. And in times where people complain about fighters not getting paid enough, I'm all for it. Look, even though it's not the Ultimate Fighter, we tweeted it out about how, two guys at the end of a UFC finale or reality show, they both got the contract. Wow, what a surprise. That's never happened before. You look at the Ultimate Fighter, and it's like 90% of the cast makes it into the UFC after the actual season. So it didn't surprise me one bit, but it would have been nice to see a decisive champion, and it would have been nice to see a fourth round. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I'd love to see a fourth round in those situations. I guess it's good for the UFC. They're trying to build a name in Japan. Two guys They've sort of built up their name through this show. I guess it makes sense. I think either way, both guys are going to get some kind of contract like you mentioned, Cass. So a good decision. I'm hoping one of these guys can actually do well in the UFC. That would be great for Japanese MMA. If one of them could really break into the top 10 one day and make a name for themselves, that would be great.
Featherweight's a tough division, man. I don't know if either one of these guys are going to break into the featherweight top 10. I think they'll sort of be relegated to the fun fight, column. What about Ishihara's post-fight, I don't know what you call it, celebration speech? When John Anik approached him and he was all like, Ishihara, what do you think about the fight? And he's like, something, my tooth. Did I win? I was like, how much damage did this guy take? He doesn't even know whether he won. I think that might have been one of the biggest factors towards the silence in the arena. The fact that maybe no one actually understood what was happening. Maybe like beforehand, everybody translated like win or lose, and then they didn't translate draw, so all the audience was stunned.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's a great point. I know this was probably one of the factors that took... If John Anik had a health meter like in Mortal Kombat, probably took a good quarter of it out when that happened. So I think it did lead to Anik sort of sounding a bit more and more tired as the broadcast went through, possibly wondering what's going to happen every time he walks out there to do a post-fight speech.
Yeah.
And thinking about everything that's gone wrong over 2015 in these post-fight speeches. But I'll tell you what, it was a hilarious moment. There were a few hilarious moments. We're going to get to the next hilarious moment in a second, but it was a hilarious moment.
Well, it wouldn't be Japan if there weren't weird moments. I was actually really happy about that. Diego Brandao made very, very quick work of Kikuno. Hey, man, he was the favorite, and everybody knows that Diego Brandao comes in guns blazing. If he's going to have any success, it's going to be in the first round. He's either going to knock you out or possibly drop you and set something up for a submission, and that's exactly what he did. I like Kikuno. I think he's a good fighter. He's got a really good style. I actually really wanted to see a bit of a war here, but, man, Diego Brandao got the job done ASAP.
Yeah, and Diego Brandao is one of those guys where when he comes in the right mental state for a fight, he's an absolute killer. But, I mean, the big problem is what's going to happen when he works his way back up into the division? Is he going to crumble like he did against Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier? I mean, that's the big question. But he looked amazing, and he went in there and did his job. He's a bad dude as well. I wouldn't want to mess with this guy on the street. You just tell he's got one of those... he can get aggressive pretty quickly sometimes. And yeah, he put on a huge performance. And how good is that? Barely broke a sweat, got his win, and gets a free holiday in Japan. I don't think it gets any better for Diego.
Yeah, he's very intense. I feel like he's the type of guy that could make anything intense. Even things that you wouldn't necessarily think or associate with being intense. He could eat cereal in an intense manner. He could tell a bedtime story. He could sing a lullaby and make it intense.
If he told me that a 50-cent piece was $1, I'd tell him yes.
Yeah, he's the type of guy that goes to McDonald's and they'd be like, "Oh, sorry, sir, it's an extra 50 cents to upgrade your meal," and he'd be like, "But I want the meal," and they're like, "Okay, well, you got the meal."
He's the kind of guy that walks up to you when you're in your car and goes, "What are you doing in my car?" And you apologize and you give him the keys and say you're just keeping it warm for him.
Yeah, pretty much. I feel like when he went to college, they'd be like, "Oh, college tuition is $50,000," and he'd be like, "I got $5," and they'd be like, "All right, it's $5."
Nah, I feel like when he goes to the Department of Meteorology, he goes, "Winter's being cold," and they go, "It's actually summer." He switches the seasons around.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like if he listens to this show, he's gonna kill us both at the same time. Next fight. Here's some more weirdness. This is the weirdness you were talking about. Takei Mizugaki versus George Roop, aka Christian Bale from The Machinist. Yeah. I tweeted this out on our Twitter. Did somebody tell George Roop that you can stop cutting weight after the weigh-ins? His face looked gaunt as. I think, was it you who was telling me somebody tweeted out, and correct me if I'm wrong, somebody tweeted out, George Roop looks like Michael Bisping if he got left in the microwave too long.
It wasn't me. No, it wasn't me, but it's a great call.
Yeah. George Roop looks like Tim Sylvia if Tim Sylvia just stopped eating for a year. That's enough making fun of George Roop. I feel like George Roop at that weight class at 135, he's lost any athleticism, any shred of athleticism. He looks, first of all, he's not very fast, which is horrible if you're going to be fighting a bantamweight, and he's got those long limbs which just take forever to move and maneuver. And I don't know, he just looks tired. Everything he does is basically tired and lethargic to me. I think that weight cut is absolutely killing him. What do you think, Dennis?
Yeah, I agree with you. And he's an epitome of one of those old school fighters that's been in the game for a really, really long time. He's got a ton of heart, and you can tell that he's got like crazy work ethic. I mean, being that skinny, it would just be brutal. You and me could never do it because we're the cheesecake queens of Melbourne. But you know, it's a tough thing. Keeping a diet like that, us Kenny Florian firsthand, it's a brutal thing. Like Kenny Florian at one point cut down to a really low weight, and he was talking about how brutal it was for him in terms of his lifestyle, living like that. And George Roop's been doing it for a while. I agree with you, Cass. Lighter doesn't always mean better, and he does look slower. I do agree with you. I think maybe a move up could be a solution for him. I mean, at the moment, he's riding a 2-fight losing streak. You want to get a third loss in a row, because that might mean, you know, goodbye to a pretty lengthy UFC career. It could be an idea for him to do that. But, you know, what did you think of the fight, Cass? What did you think of Mizugaki?
And just to add to that, man, I remember when George Roop was in Ultimate Fighter and he was fighting at lightweight. And I remember then I was like, man, this guy's so skinny. Looks like a beanpole. And now, who'd have thought, another 20 pounds lighter? Crazy. Yeah, no, Mizugaki got an easy win. George Roop, here's the other thing. Other than just looking kind of freaky, I can't understand his game plan. He's got such a huge reach advantage. He just didn't fight like he had one at all. I don't understand what the point is of being so tall, having such long limbs, if you're not going to use them, and depriving yourself of all this food and nutrients and, I mean, quality of life, I guess, if you're not even going to use those advantages that you get by fighting at bantamweight. Didn't use his reach, didn't use his length, basically walked in on Mizugaki all the time. I understand that maybe he was trying to overpower Mizugaki in the clinch, but even then, like, he didn't have that much success. He wasn't really active once he was in the clinch. This was an easy win for Mizugaki, and it wasn't necessarily because... You know, in saying that, there were some fun moments when they were standing and striking. Even though George Roop didn't come out on the winning side of most of those exchanges, that's when the fight was at its most fun. But when George Roop just put Mizugaki against the cage, it wasn't a good time. I found this fight to be very frustrating, not only because it wasn't exciting, but I just couldn't understand George Roop's game plan. What about you, Dennis?
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Cass. And Mizugaki, he had some great performances in the UFC. I loved his performance against Nam Pham and you know, Francisco Rivera. But yeah, as of late, and you could tell, obviously, we'll get to this in a second, his post-fight speech, but you could tell mentally maybe he was questioning himself. After the win, Cass, Mizugaki broke down a little bit and he cried. Without sounding, you know, dickish or anything like that, the guy did an amazing job. This is just, you know, an outside opinion. What did you think of the sound that came out of Mizugaki when he was crying? Because for me, it just sounded a little bit weird. I don't know. It just sounded a little bit different. What did you think?
I'm wondering what you were expecting him to sound like. What were you expecting?
Well, I never really hear him talk, but I wanted maybe like a...
Do you want like a deep booming voice, like some Barry White action?
Voice, yeah, Barry White action
would have been nice.
Maybe like a Don Frye, you know. Maybe
well, that's reaching. There's only one Don Frye. No, I mean, yeah. If I could sound like Don Frye, I would. You wanted Mizugaki to sound like Bob Sapp.
No, I didn't want it, Cass. I expected it, and I'll be honest, I was a little bit disappointed. Like, I had a look on Twitter. His crying didn't quite, you know, get the reaction that a lot of people, that, you know, he maybe was going for. But nevertheless, it's good to see the man back in the W column. Good stuff, Mizugaki.
You know what? The only thing that struck me, and I wouldn't even use the word weird, I wasn't sure why he was crying. I thought it was just, I don't know, I thought it was getting a win in Japan because he hadn't gotten one in so long. I thought that's what it was. And then, of course, as it turns out, you know, after the Dominic Cruz loss and then Aljamain Sterling, he wasn't sure if he could continue. So I'm happy for the man. Look, he's got a long way to go because George Roop, I mean, he's sort of, you know, respectfully at the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to bantamweight. So if he still needs to do a lot more work if he's going to erase the losses to Aljamain Sterling, and especially that, 60-something second destruction via Dominic Cruz, because he was on a really nice streak before that. Like you mentioned, you know, that awesome fight with Nam Pham, there was Francisco Rivera, he beat Eric Perez, you know, even Brian Caraway. Those are all good wins. So he's going to have to work his way back. But I'm glad, because, you know, again, he's another guy where his career surely isn't going to go on for that much longer. So I'm happy to see him back in the win column. And he gets to live another day.
Yeah, that's great to see, Cass. Now, the following fight on the main card, I'll get you to introduce this one because I don't want to destroy people's names.
Yeah, no need to upset people. Kyoji Hiraguchi versus Chico Camus. What were your thoughts on this one, Dennis? You got former title challenger Hiraguchi looking to bounce back, and a guy who I think is criminally underrated, Chico Camus. What was your take on this one?
Yeah, I was just absolutely impressed by Hiraguchi. He was just fantastic. And I mean, last impression that everybody had of him was obviously his loss to Demetrius Johnson all the way back at UFC 186. You got to give it to Demetrius Johnson for being able to dominate Hiraguchi like he did. I mean, he is an absolute star. He's only 24 years old, which just blows my mind. I keep forgetting about it. And he was able to move around at super fast speed, just his technique. You could really see that karate background behind striking. I mean, Chico wasn't really able to do very much in this fight, and near the end of the, his corner was telling him to go out there, make something happen, and he was trying to make stuff happen, but he just couldn't get into the right gear. It just feels like Hiraguchi was just on another level compared to him. It was really, really impressive display. What did you think of it?
I expected pretty much exactly what happened. I knew that Hiraguchi was technically better when it came to striking. His lateral movement was very impressive. His footwork seemed even better. Guys with Hiraguchi's style, I say guys, but it's not like there's heaps of them, they tend to baffle even the toughest of competitors, and that's pretty much what happened against Chico. I think Chico was just very flustered. He didn't know where Hiraguchi was coming at him from, and therefore he was too, I don't want to use the word afraid, but I use it for lack of a better term, he was too afraid to attack because he felt like he was going to get countered, and Hiraguchi put on a fantastic display. I like the way he mixed in his strikes with his clinch work. He'd move in from, a straight shot, getting in there, covering distance very quickly, that karate style, into the clinch when the clinch wasn't working. Contrasting to the previous fight where George Roop and Mizugaki spent half of the fight in the clinch, Hiraguchi was in, out, in, out. He didn't stay in the clinch for long periods of times. He would get in there, and he almost used it purely just to move Chico around the cage or around the octagon and just to set things up. And it was almost like a feint. He really never knew which angle he was coming from, and he's got knockout power to boot as well. I was very impressed. And this doesn't make me look at Chico Camus any less. I do think, at the moment he's ranked 13th in the division, I do think he's definitely going to climb that ladder. Flyweight's a pretty shallow division, even still, and I think it's going to be a while before it really thickens up. And I think we're going to see Chico in the top 10 pretty soon. But today was Hiraguchi's night, and I'm excited to hopefully see him win his way back up to another title shot soon.
Yeah, and with Chico, I mean, a couple of really tough matchups back-to-back. Obviously, since his win against Brad Pickett at UFC Fight Night, Edgar versus Swanson, he did fight Henry Cejudo, did lose to that in a decision. I mean, no
Very
shame
close.
there. Cejudo, a superstar coming up in the division, obviously an Olympic-level wrestler, not just an Olympic level, but he won the damn thing, and then now he's got Hiraguchi. So I'd like to see him, get another opponent just to get his wits about him. But nevertheless, great experience fighting the best of the best in the division. I mean, that really comes back to you when you do get all your skills together.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of the best, Uriah Hall versus Gegard Mousasi. I've been excited to talk about this one. Before this fight, Gegard Mousasi said he was extremely confident. He felt like he was on a roll, and he felt like he was never going to lose ever again, which you don't really hear Gegard say too much. He's a very humble kind of guy, doesn't really smile or really show any emotions for that matter. Almost like a Fedor, almost like a Gunnar Nelson in that sense. Just a really, really stoic guy. For him to say, we all remember when he versed Jacare Souza and he lost, and he just felt very dejected and he felt very unmotivated. So for him to say he's never going to lose again, and coming up against Uriah Hall, last-minute replacement, I think most people pick Gegard Mousasi to win. If not on the feet, then it would be on the ground, and it would be basically a grappling clinic. I don't know about you, Dennis, but I also felt like this fight had the potential to actually be kind of lackluster, because Uriah Hall, sometimes he just doesn't get out of the first gear. Gegard Mousasi, sometimes when he's being dominant, he has the tendency to just hang back and pick his opponents apart from range, and I really thought, wow, this is either going to be really awesome or really suck. I didn't predict that it was going to end the way it did. All of my predictions ended with Gegard Mousasi winning. Uriah Hall with that insane jumping, spinning back kick into a flying knee, and then add more punches just for added effect combination and actually getting the win. I thought that was crazy. What did you think of the fight, Dennis?
Yeah, it was just unbelievable. I mean, at the start, exactly what we thought was going to happen. I mean, Mousasi just absolutely dominated Uriah Hall, put him in a position, in a very difficult position. He was on the bottom. He was doing his thing. He just dominated him in the grappling, got into mount pretty much whenever he wanted to. And, Hall did go for a couple of those leg locks, but it was just like, it wasn't going to happen. An interesting moment from Hall as well when he went for the Kimura. Almost got Mousasi in a bad position with that. But yeah, I just didn't. Once that round finished, and knowing Uriah Hall and knowing the issues that he's had mentally with fighting as well, I just didn't think he was going to come out in the next round being able to do very much. And when he threw that kick, it just blew my mind. It was just so well timed. I mean, a lot of guys out there, they will say that, Uriah Hall still has something to prove because it wasn't a lucky kick, but a lot of people might say it was one of those lucky things that landed. But the way he's been able to land those spinning kicks before, it's almost like he just trains for it and he works on the timing. So I wouldn't put it past him. I do think it was a fantastic move from him. And I like the job by the referee. He did give Mousasi a chance to get back in the fight, but he just wasn't able to get back in the fight after a kick like that. I was really, really impressed with Uriah Hall. I mean, this means big things for his career. A lot of haters, a lot of doubters, people saying he can't hang with the best of the best in the division. He just beat someone who's right up there in Gegard Mousasi. Now, I'm not sure if he'd be able to do it against some of the other top guys in the division, but he's earned a shot to test himself against some of those guys. So I'll be interested to see how he goes. And if it is a mental thing for Uriah Hall, no doubt this gives him the confidence that he needs to go out there and execute more of the moves that he executed in this fight against Mousasi, like that spinning kick. So it was a huge, huge win from him. What did you think about it all, Cass?
Well, one thing I disagree with you is about Uriah Hall being dominated in the first and then the fact that he was just going to give up in the second. I actually think even in the first when he was getting dominated, he always seemed fired up. I actually thought he had a lot of fight in him, and I thought, maybe he's crossed that mental barrier that people always talk about. I actually loved the first round. Even though it was mainly Gegard Mousasi dominating him, Uriah Hall was always trying to work for something. Even when he was dominated, like you mentioned, he was going for leg locks, he went for that Kimura. But the second round, man, I could have never predicted that. In saying that, and I hate to be that guy because this is one of the craziest knockouts that I've seen in a very, very long time. Just so visually pleasing. I mean, it's one thing to land like a spinning back kick, but it was a jumping spinning back kick. It was literally his whole person was in the air, and then to follow it up with a flying knee. Like, people go for crazy things like that so often, and a lot of the time it's laughable in the most respectful way possible. You see, you're like, okay, cool, but there was never any chance of that. Like Cajun Johnson, he threw a nice spinning back kick in his fight against Katani on the same card, and it was a nice looking kick, but it was just nowhere near landing. Uriah Hall, jumping, spinning back kick, lands that, follows it up with a flying knee. I mean, that's two crazy moves that you rarely see, hitting singularly, and he hit them in a combination, and then he, dropped Gegard Mousasi. Just absolutely crazy. In saying that, like, the question is, could you really see him landing that again? I know he's hit it before. I know he's hit spinning back kicks before. I think it was Adam Seller who he brutally knocked out on The Ultimate Fighter, but I don't know. Like, if they had a rematch, I'd probably still pick Gegard Mousasi. I'm just saying. I'd probably still pick Gegard Mousasi. This is an awesome, amazing win for Uriah Hall, and he's going to crack the top 15. But I don't know. I still think Gegard Mousasi has a lot to show. The only thing that I sort of disagree on with Gegard is he looked pretty upset about that stoppage. Man, he was completely turtled up. He was taking unnecessary punishment. I'm with you on the referee, man. The referee did a good job, and if Gegard Mousasi wants to protest that one, I completely disagree with him.
Yeah, I see Gegard being upset and almost upset at himself because in that first round, I mean, he had some really dominant positions. I don't want to say that he took it easy on Uriah, but I think he just wanted to take his time with the fight. But maybe if he did get in those dominant positions like the man and really put the heat on him, I don't think he let Uriah get out of him because he did, bump up his hips and went for the leg. But I just feel like he was flowing a lot and he was trying not to push the action. But maybe a part of him gets a bit frustrated at the fact, like, look, I had him in this position. Maybe I should have thrown all my guns at him when I had him there. And now, I ended up with a loss. Maybe that's, so a frustrating experience for him in that regard. Because he had him in some good positions in the first round. Like, I don't really agree with you, Cass. I don't think Uriah was very good in terms of, mentally. I didn't see anything from him. I thought he was going to give up, to be honest with you. And I really didn't think he went for very much. I mean, he went for a couple of things, but I wasn't impressed with him whatsoever in that first round. So I guess we're going to have to disagree on that.
Well, there you go. Shots fired. Well, let's see if we can disagree on the main event.
Yep.
Josh Barnett versus Roy Nelson. I feel like this was always going to be the thing that was going to save the card. Before Uriah Hall, before Gegard Mousasi, I was kind of looking at the clock thinking, all right, well, this is the one that's going to end things on a really good note, hopefully. What did you think of the fight overall? Did you enjoy it? I know a lot of people were saying how a lot of it took place on the cage. Did you enjoy the fight, though?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's almost what UFC 191 Arlovsky versus Mir should have been, a fun fight between two veterans. It was one of those examples where you can have a guy up against the cage, but it can still be exciting. You know, you could be working the clinch like Josh did. I really, really enjoyed this fight. And it's crazy because you got these two guys who are a bit bigger, who aren't really known for their cardio, especially Roy Nelson. It went into 5 rounds, but there were so many exciting moments. Like even right at the end where both guys were exhausted, I was still like really enjoying the fight, and there was still some great moments. You could tell both guys just wanted to put on a fun performance, try and get MMA kick-started in Japan, and I think they did just that. What about you, Cass? Did you enjoy the whole experience of the 5 rounds between the two big men?
I thought it was awesome, and I really didn't expect it to go that long. I thought that if anything, Roy Nelson might tire and Josh Barnett might get him in like the 4th or the 5th round via a submission. I know Roy Nelson's got that black belt, and we keep hearing about his ground game, but you know, he hasn't utilized it. Meanwhile, Josh Barnett, he's doing his grappling competitions like Metamoris. You know, he's the heavyweight champion. He submitted Dean Lister. And I don't know, part of me just thinks, well, because we haven't seen his ground game, Roy Nelson's, how much does he even train? I mean, has his ground game stagnated? It's been a while since he beat Frank Mir all those years ago in, I don't even remember what grappling competition it was.
I think it was like a Grapple Quest or something.
Yeah, maybe.
Sure, yeah,
maybe.
Something like that, yeah.
I don't know, but before I actually get into the fight itself, I actually think this is a really tough fight to pick. It was a fight that didn't mean anything in the division. Like, neither one of these guys is knocking down the door on a title shot. Josh Barnett, he's been inactive for such a long time, and he's been busy with other things like, you know, pro wrestling and grappling. It was very hard to gauge where he sort of stands. Once I saw him at the weigh-ins, I was like, holy shit, okay, this guy means business. He hasn't been in shape this good since he faced Daniel Cormier, so he's definitely ready. But, you know, and like when he faced Travis Brown, he looked so horrible. He looked so soft, and then, you know, Travis Brown got him out of there pretty much immediately. Not only that, but Josh Barnett being a legend, you just wonder, like, how much does he have left? And then you got Roy Nelson, where it was like, yeah, you know, he's got that overhand right, but other than that overhand right, like, what else does he have? What other tools does he really use? And you just kind of think, like, well, is this the fight where Josh Barnett gets caught and brutally knocked out like Big Nog? But, man, I was super happy to see the fight go all 5 rounds. I think every single round was entertaining. Roy Nelson came in a little bit heavier than usual. The gut was actually extra big. Josh Barnett looked like he was angry at Roy Nelson for coming in so fat while he had slimmed down. He was attacking that gut, really trying to sap his cardio, and it was good. He had absolutely deadly knees, did Josh Barnett, to the body, to the face. He was really attacking that gut. He was kicking him. Roy Nelson throwing up some kicks of his own to the head, to the body. That was crazy. I think it was even in the pre-fight video where Josh Barnett was talking about how Roy Nelson doesn't throw kicks, and there he is throwing head kicks. There was a moment where Josh Barnett was holding Roy Nelson like against the fence. You know, like that cliche, like the bully or the older brother holding a kid by the face and the brother can't do anything. It was kind of like that. Roy Nelson's like throwing punches. He got frustrated. He threw a head kick from like punching range. It was crazy. Even Roy Nelson, like every time he went to the cage, to his corner, was absolutely exhausted. And I think in the 5th round, he's still shooting for takedowns and landing them. It was absolutely crazy. I absolutely loved the fight.
Yeah, and you know, just to go back, it was Grappler's Quest 2003 that the Mir and Nelson grappled each other. I was very impressed, Cass, with Roy Nelson's grappling. I mean, you just mentioned the takedowns that he got. When he got Josh Barnett down, you know, Josh Barnett obviously doing really well in grappling as of late. He didn't really have much for Nelson off the bottom. Did you notice that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no. Roy Nelson, I mean, all like 261 pounds of him basically sat on Josh Barnett, didn't let him move. I was impressed with Roy Nelson, the way he took his time. Anytime Josh Barnett would try and move side to side, Roy Nelson would counter that. I was very impressed with Roy there. And Roy's got very underrated wrestling, but I just didn't think it would be a factor against Josh Barnett, who also has great wrestling. So I was impressed at how many times Roy Nelson took Josh Barnett down, and even the amount of times that he shot in, got in on his hips, and it was really close to actually taking Josh Barnett down. And Roy Nelson is a guy that used to be really good against the clinch. He'd take guys, I don't know if I'd use the word bully, but he'd put him up against the cage. And ever since he's started to lose weight, a lot of fighters have been commenting that he just doesn't feel very strong. Like, I think Frank Mir, Bigfoot, and Werdum all said the same thing. Actually, wait, no, not Bigfoot. I think it was Werdum and Frank Mir. But yeah, I don't know. I just noticed that Roy Nelson, a lot of time, he gets put up against the cage and he can't really do much. And in this case, he was the aggressor. He was the one putting Josh Barnett against the cage and, even getting out of some dicey spots. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then you got Josh Barnett putting all these awesome combinations together, putting through those sneaky uppercuts against the cage. I love those. It was an awesome fight. Awesome war, man. The War Master really showed why, his nickname is exactly that, the War Master.
Yeah, and very impressive because his last fight with Travis Brown was almost 2 years ago. I mean, the guy took a big break, like you mentioned. He's doing the pro wrestling. I think he's done a bunch of movies as well as all the grappling stuff. So it's great to see him back. The combinations that he was putting together, you touched on this, Cass. I mean, I haven't seen him put combinations like this together for a really long time. Looks like he's been really focusing on the fluidity of his striking, and he looks great for 37 years old. It's great to see that he dropped the weight. I'm big on Josh Barnett over his next few fights. I want to see where this takes him. I think he can have a lot of fun fights with some of the guys in the heavyweight division. I wonder who they'll put him up against next. What do you think happens to Roy Nelson, Cass? This is his third loss in a row, yet this fight was exciting, and he's an asset to the heavyweight division.
He's not going anywhere, man. I know, like, Dana White has always said how much he, not to say he dislikes Roy Nelson, but, they've had a very tumultuous relationship, and usually he's seen as, I guess, like a pain in the ass. If you were going to put yourself in Dana White's shoes and describe him, you'd probably think that Dana White thinks that he's a pain in the ass. But nevertheless, I mean, the fight against Mark Hunt, he was on the receiving end of a highlight reel knockout. Against Alistair Overeem, I think he earned a lot of people's respect. I know he earned Dana White's respect. He took a lot of punishment. And then in this fight against Josh Barnett, I feel almost like these guys saved the event. It was a great way to cap off an event that, I don't know, I think had some highs, some lows, but more lows than highs. And I think Roy Nelson is definitely to thank for that. He's not going anywhere. They're going to keep him on. Worst case scenario, he'll be a gatekeeper. I don't ever see him getting a title shot. I mean, stranger things have happened. I definitely don't ever see him winning the title. Again, I say that respectfully, but he'll always be in the UFC for fun fights, unless he either retires or decides that he doesn't want to be in the UFC anymore.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, like you mentioned, retirement. There was one point at the end of the fight when they were doing the post-fight press, not the press, but the speech, and Josh Barnett called him over and said all those nice things about him when he was taking off his gloves. And I was like, why is he taking off his gloves in the octagon? Like, I thought, what's he doing? For a second, I was worried that he was going to retire right there and then. But alas, he has not retired. He's 39 years old. As we've seen, heavyweights do have a big length when it comes to their age in the division, and they do sort of get better with time like cheese. So who knows what's going to happen with him? What do you think, Cass? I mean, we've already touched on this a million times. Any point to him losing the weight, dropping down to a better weight, and having a run at this thing? Or do you think it's just one of the draw cards of Roy Nelson? He comes in, he's got that kind of wacky shape. He is who he is, and that's what makes him so interesting. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I could sit here and speculate on whether losing the weight would be better for him. I don't know what his training ethic is like. I mean, I'm sure he's going out there training. I don't know. I doubt that he's going in there just, once a week or once a day in the gym.
And he had some cardio. I mean, he was gassed, very gassed, but he still had some cardio. In that fifth round, he still had something. Not much, but he still had something. So he must be training hard.
Well, I think what he had was heart. I don't know if it was necessarily the cardio. And the other thing is, you got to look at the fact that Josh Barnett blasted him in the body over and over again. I mean, you can train as much cardio as you want, and it's not going to last if you take shots like that. I mean, Daniel Cormier, he took not nearly as many shots to the body against John Jones, and he completely gassed. Again, there may have been other reasons for that, but body shots are going to take it out of you. And as Frank Mir said, cardio makes cowards of us all. I think if Roy Nelson was going to do it, he would have done it by now. He's never going to lose the weight. I'd be shocked if he did. And if he did, I mean, Mike Dolce was saying he could probably get him down to middleweight, and I believe that. He's what, like a flat 6 foot, 6'1" maximum?
Yeah, he's 6 foot.
Yeah, I'm sure he could get down to middleweight if he ever wanted to. At this point in his life, why would he? Why would he make such a big life decision? I'm sure he enjoys the food. Here's the other crazy thing about Roy Nelson. Who do you match him up with? I'm just looking at the top 15.
It's a tough one because he's fought almost everybody. Much everyone. So you got to get it down to rematches almost.
Well, he's fought Struve. He's fought Mitrione.
Yep.
Bigfoot. He hasn't fought Bigfoot. He could fight Bigfoot, actually. He's fought Frank Mir, he's fought Overeem, he just fought Josh Barnett, he lost to Mark Hunt, Ben Rothwell. In the IFL. Who else? Travis Brown. He hasn't fought Travis Brown. Andrei Arlovsky. He's fought Arlovsky to do a rematch. Then there's like Stipe. He fought Stipe Miocic, lost. He's fought Junior Dos Santos. He hasn't fought Velasquez. He has fought Werdum. There's like 2-3 matchups in the heavyweight division, unless you're going outside of the top 15 and you're going to start giving him rematches.
A man who'd be maybe decent for a matchup, a guy from Australia, Soa Palele. I mean, he could be using an Australian card on one of these fight nights if they do one in Perth or one of those smaller shows. He could be a big draw down here, so I guess maybe something like that. I guess you can put him up against a couple of no-name heavyweights, also sort of lower-tier heavyweights, maybe get him to build up a bit of a win streak. I think almost you don't want to put him up against someone tough for his next fight because you don't want him to have that fourth loss. I almost feel like the UFC want him to win a couple of low-key fights before he gets back in the picture, so they don't have to start making excuses why they're sort of keeping him around and cutting everybody else. But,
when he lost to Fabricio Werdum, they gave him Dave Herman, so they could give him a guy like that. I don't think Dave Herman was ever in the top 15 in the heavyweight division. I could be wrong, but I don't think he was. And UFC's got heavyweights like that. They could give him Soa Palele, but again, I think they want Soa for Australian cards. They want to build him up, and I think that's a tough fight for Soa Palele.
Tough fight for Palele, yeah. I mean, whatever happens, maybe like Rochelt, if he wins his fight against Struve in Australia, that could be interesting. I guess he's a wrestler. I can see Roy Nelson beating him, though. So, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Nevertheless, he comes into the fight and he's got a lot of heart. So, a lot of respect goes out to Roy Cass. It was a great way to cap off a card that sort of had a lot of ups and downs, a lot of sort of moments where the fights weren't as interesting, a lot of weird moments, but the last 3 fights really made it a worthwhile event to watch. So at the end of the day, it ended up being decent enough to for all the fans that were there and everybody who was watching.
Yeah, all's well that ends well. I think this card definitely ended well, but it is a card that I'm definitely going to try and forget. There were a lot of points where I was falling asleep. So there were some good performances. I'm just happy that we had an awesome main event to kick it off. But we mentioned Soa Palele before. Man, this is something that we want to talk about, just bring up on the show. Something crazy happened the other day. Soa Palele, he's been an ambassador in Western Australia for the hospital and the Make-A-Wish Foundation and seeing the sick kids in the hospital. And he got basically told that he can't go and visit the kids anymore, the PMH hospital. Dennis, what exactly happened?
Well, the hospital actually made a statement to WA Today, which is sort of a newspaper website over there in Western Australia. I'll just quickly reading out. They said, following the significant media coverage of the controversy surrounding UFC fighting, which is currently banned in Western Australia, a decision was made by the PMH executive that it would not be appropriate to have a representative of the sport visit the hospital. So it sort of goes on and on.
And they called it UFC fighting, did they?
They called it UFC fighting. So it just shows you what the knowledge is. They went on to say, with many people in the community having very strong views about this particular sport due to its perceived level of violence, keyword perceived, and the fact that it's banned in WA, executive staff felt that it was the best decision at this time. And then Soa Palele said, I was dumbfounded in a way. You want me to do a 24-hour grind, put my body on the line for you, raise money for you guys, but you won't let me see the kids. It's disappointing. I can't go there to see the kids. So apparently he's actually raised money for the kids before. He's done some charity stuff for the hospital. Even though he's done all the work and raised the money, they won't let him go visit the kids.
Well, what they did, there's like these machines. What are they called? It's like an ergo challenge or something like that. It's I don't know. It's like a treadmill, but you use your arms basically. You sit there and you kind of like use your arms, and it's like a 24-hour thing. You sit there and people donate. It's almost like you would a fun run, all those things where people go on treadmills for like 24 hours and people donate. So he did that. He already did it, and he raised the money. And he goes and he visits the kids regularly. So they took the money. They're like, yeah, no worries. Great. Good on you for doing the 24-hour challenge and everything. We're going to take the money, but you can't see the kids now. It's just got ridiculous written all over it. I hate the fact that they call it UFC fighting. They clearly don't know what they're talking about. And they're clearly giving into pressure of the uneducated public. And the premier, Colin Barnett, this asshole, allegedly, said he didn't approve of cage fighting because it was aggressive and violent. Listen to this, right? This is going to get your motors going. This is what old Colin said, old Cozza. I'm not against boxing, I'm not against wrestling and so on, but I don't think we need to go down the path of cage fighting in WA, and I think the vast majority of people would agree with me. First of all, so it seems to me like this guy, he's like, boxing's fine, right? Because apparently boxing's not aggressive or violent. Wrestling's fine. And I assume when he says wrestling, I mean, if you're in America, you may not know this, but like amateur wrestling, it's not big here in Australia. I'm assuming he's talking about pro wrestling, right? Dennis and me, you know, we used to be big pro wrestling fans. We still kind of, you know, turn it on in the background here and there. I mean, you know, people are bleeding and shit. It is violent. It is all about entertainment, but it is aggressive and violent. So this guy's saying that's fine, boxing's fine, but he labels it cage fighting. So it seems to me like old Colin is a bit uneducated, and his biggest hang up about the whole thing is that the people are fighting inside of a cage. So he obviously doesn't know anything about the sport, and he's looking back to that whole, you know, cage fighting aspect and cockfighting and this and that. So I think the biggest losers here are the kids, because if you've met Soa, you'll know he's a really nice guy. He's the epitome of a gentle giant, and he's obviously making people happy. He's made wishes come true, and the Make-A-Wish Foundation was basically the kids wish for anything they want, and certain people have wished to meet Soa Palele. He's gone and done that, and because of... I doubt there's much public outcry, but the hospital's basically saying, oh, well, you know, to keep up appearances, we're not going to have this, you know, UFC fight. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, Cass, and so Palele, I mean, a fantastic guy, a real gentleman, a real spokesperson for the sport. He's a real example for the kids. I mean, you can't get a better guy in than that. He's always going out, helping charities as much as he can. Great ambassador for the sport here in Australia. And I mean, you've touched on it, the great point. I mean, this affects the kids. No one else is losing out except for these kids. And I just don't understand what this big deal is. They made, over there in WA, they made the sport seem ridiculous. You know, we've got sports here like rugby, AFL football, a whole bunch of different sports. And, you know, all of them have issues with tackling and head trauma. MMA is actually a lot better in a lot of those categories than those sports. It's just unfair perception and people not understanding the sport, which in the end is going to affect these kids. So guys, if you are in WA or you're in Australia, make sure to write to the minister over there and, you know, voice your opinion, because that's, I guess, the best way to get these guys to educate themselves. It just seems like they're not willing to look into the sport and realize UFC is not a sport, it's an organization, and it's a great sport that kids can look up to, the athletes in the sport. So it's a real shame.
Yeah, there are a bunch of idiots over there down WA, and I'm talking about politicians, not the awesome people of WA. And yeah, hashtag free Hulk, free Soul Palele. Hashtag unleash the Hulk. I think that's enough, man, from us for another week. I think we're done talking about UFC Japan. The quicker we forget about it, the better. We'll be back next week. Obviously, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SubmissionAUS, on Facebook, facebook.com/SubmissionRadioAUS. And don't forget, guys, check out FightLiveTV.com. A godsend for all the Aussie MMA fans and fight fans is obviously Muay Thai, kickboxing, pretty much everything. Things like Bellator, Rebel FC, RFA, Legacy FC, whole bunch of free events and pay-per-views coming up. I know a lot of people are always asking us, where can we watch Bellator? Where can we watch this? This is the place, and the logo is anytime, anywhere, and from any device. So the website you want to go to is FightLiveTV.com. Check it out, guys. And before we pull the plug on this episode, Dan, has any final words on for the fans?
Guys, in the comment section below, let us know your thoughts on UFC Japan. What was the highlight? What was the low light? What was the fight of the night? And what you think of Roy Nelson maybe going into grappling? Would you like to see him at a Morris? Would you like to see him grapple someone? You would see Roy Nelson go for a crazy submission. Who knows? Let us know in the comment section below. But I think that's it for this week, Cass.
We'll catch you guys next week.